The Packlet females' desperation reaches a fever pitch as they hijack a human cargo ship. Their race teeters on the brink of extinction, and they see no other choice but to kidnap a human male for their breeding experiments. Alarms blare throughout the human vessel as Vera, the lead Packlet scientist, and her team storm the bridge. Crew members scatter, but the Packlet's non-lethal energy weapons make short work of the human defenses. In the chaos, Vera spots their target, Donald Morales, a 28-year-old engineer, attempting to seal off the engine room. "There, secure the human male," Vera shouts, her voice tight with urgency. Two Packlet security officers flank Donald, their weapons trained on him. He raises his hands, eyes darting between his captors. "What do you want?" Donald demands, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. Vera steps forward, her alien features set in grim determination. "You are key to our survival, human. Come quietly, and no harm will befall you." Before Donald can respond, a burst of energy from a Packlet weapon strikes him. He crumples to the floor, unconscious. Vera nods to her team. "Quickly, to the shuttles. We must reach the asteroid base before Earth's forces mobilize." The Packlets drag Donald's limp form through the corridors of the cargo ship, leaving stunned and incapacitated humans in their wake. Within minutes, they board their waiting shuttles and detach from the human vessel, streaking towards their hidden base. Hours later, Donald stirs. His eyes flutter open, adjusting to the harsh light of a sterile laboratory. He finds himself restrained on a medical table, surrounded by unfamiliar equipment and alien faces. Panic sets in as he struggles against his bonds. Vera approaches, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Be calm, human. We mean you no harm, but your cooperation is essential." Donald's voice is hoarse as he demands, "Where am I? What's going on?" Vera takes a deep breath, preparing to explain their dire situation. "You are aboard our research station. I am Vera, lead scientist of the Packlet race. Our species faces extinction due to a genetic defect rendering our females infertile. You, Donald Morales, have been selected for a series of breeding experiments to save our kind." Donald's eyes widen in disbelief. "Breeding experiments? You can't be serious." As Vera begins to detail their plans, Donald's survival instincts kick in. With a sudden burst of strength, he breaks free from one of his restraints and lashes out, catching a nearby Packlet off guard. Chaos erupts in the lab as Donald makes a dash for the door. "Restrain him," Vera shouts, her voice tinged with panic. Packlet security forces swarm into the room, quickly subduing Donald despite his fierce resistance. As they secure him once more, Vera approaches, her expression grave. "I understand your fear, Donald, but you must listen. Your DNA may hold the key to our survival. We have no choice but to proceed with our plan." Meanwhile, light years away, the aftermath of the Packlet raid sends shock waves through human space. The Packlet government, unaware of the rogue female's actions, issues a galaxy-wide alert for the missing human. Earth's military springs into action, mobilizing a rescue mission led by the determined commander Sarah James. As Sarah boards her sleek military vessel, her jaw set with resolve, she addresses her crew. "Our mission is clear. Recover Donald Morales and prevent an interstellar incident. The stakes have never been higher." Little do they know, their rescue attempt is about to become far more complicated. In the shadows of deep space, a Xinti stealth ship glides silently towards the Packlet asteroid base. The feline-like aliens have caught wind of the potential human-Packlet hybrid, viewing it as a threat to their dominance in the sector. Back in the Packlet laboratory, Vera and her team initiate the first phase of their breeding program. They carefully extract genetic material from the restrained Donald, combining it with Packlet ova in a series of complex experiments. As they work, Vera can't shake the feeling that time is running out. Between the approaching human rescue team and the unseen Xinti threat, the fate of the Packlet race hangs by a thread. With the galaxy closing in around them, Vera faces an impossible choice. Release Donald and abandon their last hope for survival, or risk everything to complete their desperate plan. As alarms begin to sound throughout the asteroid base, signaling approaching ships, Vera knows her decision will shape the future of not just the Packlet race, but potentially the entire sector. As alarms blared throughout the asteroid base, Vera's grip on Donald's arm tightened. She led him swiftly through the winding corridors, her iridescent skin shimmering under the pulsing red emergency lights. "We must hurry," she said, her large eyes darting nervously. "The experiments cannot wait, even with the approaching threats." They burst into the laboratory where a team of Pakled scientists scurried about, preparing equipment and monitoring displays. Donald's eyes widened as he took in the array of unfamiliar technology surrounding him. Vera guided him to a medical table. "Please, lie down," she instructed, her voice softer now. "We need to begin the compatibility tests immediately." Donald hesitated, his heart racing. But as he looked into Vera's eyes, he saw not just purpose, but a profound vulnerability that caught him off guard. Slowly, he reclined on the table. "What exactly are you going to do?" he asked, his voice tight with apprehension. Vera began attaching sensors to his skin. "We'll be extracting various biological samples, blood, tissue, and reproductive material," she explained, her cheeks flushing a deeper shade of blue. "I assure you, our methods are advanced. You'll experience discomfort, but no pain." As the procedures began, Donald found himself studying Vera more closely. Despite her alien features, there was an undeniable grace to her movements. Her skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, and her eyes held a depth of emotion he hadn't noticed before. Hours passed as the Pakled team worked tirelessly. Donald watched in fascination as they combined his genetic material with Pakled ova, creating the first batch of hybrid embryos. The scientists huddled around incubation chambers, murmuring excitedly as they observed rapid cellular division and unexpected genetic expressions. "This is remarkable," Vera breathed, her face inches from a display showing a magnified embryo. "The growth rate far exceeds our projections." Donald found himself drawn into their excitement. His initial fear and resistance began to fade, replaced by a growing curiosity. He started asking questions about the process, offering insights from his knowledge of human biology. Vera seemed surprised but pleased by his engagement. As they worked side by side, monitoring the embryo's development, she opened up about the Pakled's desperate situation. "Our entire species will vanish within a generation if we can't solve this fertility crisis," she explained, her voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. "This research, might be our last hope." Donald felt a pang of empathy. The ethical concerns that had plagued him earlier now seemed less black and white. He found himself wondering if there might be a way to help the Pakleds without compromising his own principles. Their tentative connection was abruptly shattered as the base rocked violently. Alarms shrieked a new warning. "We're under attack!" a Pakled security officer shouted, bursting into the lab. "Xinti ships have breached our outer defenses." Vera's face paled. "We can't lose our research now," she said, her voice tight with fear. "Not when we're so close to a breakthrough." Donald's mind raced. His engineering background kicked in, analyzing the situation. "Your defensive systems," he said quickly. "Maybe I can help strengthen them against the Xinti weapons?" Vera hesitated, clearly torn between protecting their work and trusting the human who had been their captive. Another explosion rocked the base, making the decision for her. "Show him the defense grid," she ordered the security officer, "but watch him closely." As Donald pored over the base's schematics, looking for ways to reinforce their shields, Vera returned her attention to the hybrid embryos. One in particular showed exceptional promise, its cells multiplying and differentiating at an astonishing rate. "This could be it," she whispered, hope blooming in her chest. "The viable offspring we've been searching for." But even as she spoke, the sounds of battle grew closer. The Xinti forces, led by the ruthless Captain Czar, pressed their attack with increasing ferocity. Pakled security teams scrambled to repel the invaders, but they were quickly being overwhelmed. In the midst of the chaos, Donald and Vera found themselves working in tandem. He, fortifying the base's defenses to buy them more time, and she, nurturing the fragile hybrid embryo that represented the Pakled's future. Their eyes met across the lab, a moment of understanding passing between them. They both knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Pakled species, but potentially the balance of power in this sector of space. And somewhere out there, Unbeknownst to them, Commander Sarah James and her rescue team raced against time, fighting through a solar storm to reach the asteroid base. The lab shook again as another Kzinti barrage struck home. Vera clutched the incubation chamber protectively, her eyes meeting Donald's with a mix of fear and commitment. They both knew their time was running out. The lab shook violently as another Kzinti barrage struck the asteroid base. Vera clutched the incubation chamber, her knuckles turning a pale blue. She locked eyes with Donald, their shared dedication palpable in the chaos. "We need to stabilize this embryo," Vera said, her voice steady despite the tremors rocking the facility. "It's our best chance." Donald nodded, pushing aside his conflicted feelings about his captivity. He moved to Vera's side, studying the readouts on the incubation chamber. "The cellular division rate is off the chart," he observed, tapping the screen. "I've never seen anything like it." As they worked feverishly to adjust the embryo's environment, alarms blared throughout the lab. The other pack-led scientists scurried about, securing equipment and backing up data. Amidst the frenzy, Donald noticed something extraordinary on the monitor. "Vera, look at this," he said, pointing to a magnified image of the embryo. "The genetic structure, it's stabilizing on its own." Vera leaned in, her eyes widening. "Impossible," she breathed. "The hybridization should be causing massive instabilities. But instead—" "It's adapting," Donald finished, "combining the best of both species' genetic traits." A loud explosion rocked the base, nearly knocking them off their feet. The lab door burst open, and Zira, the head of Packlet Security, rushed in. "The Kzinti have breached our outer defenses," she reported, her voice tight with urgency. "We can't hold them off much longer." Vera's face hardened with drive. "We need more time. This embryo could be the key to everything." Donald's mind raced. "Your shield generators," he said suddenly. "I might be able to modify them. Buy us some extra time." Vera hesitated, glancing between Donald and the precious embryo. Another blast shook the lab, making the decision for her. "Do it," she ordered. "Zira, take him to the defense grid, but watch him closely." As Donald followed Zira out of the lab, Vera turned back to the incubation chamber. The embryo had already grown significantly, its features becoming more distinct. She could make out the beginnings of a face, neither fully human nor pack-led, but something new entirely. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Donald worked alongside the Packlet security team, his engineering skills proving invaluable as they reinforced the base's remaining defenses. Meanwhile, Vera and her research team focused on nurturing the rapidly developing hybrid. "Its neural pathways are forming at an unprecedented rate," one of the Packlet scientists reported, awe in his voice. Vera nodded, her excitement tempered by a growing concern. "At this rate of development, we could be looking at sentience within days, not years." The implications of this realization hit her like a physical blow. They had set out to save their species, but in doing so, they might have created something beyond their understanding. As if in response to her thoughts, the embryo, now resembling a small fetus, twitched within the incubation chamber. Vera leaned in close, her breath fogging the glass. Suddenly, the fetus's eyes fluttered open, meeting her gaze with an awareness that sent a shiver down her spine. "Donald," she called out, her voice shaking, "you need to see this." He rushed over, still grimy from his work on the defense systems. As he looked into the incubation chamber, his jaw dropped. "Is it conscious?" Before Vera could respond, the entire base shuddered under a massive impact. Zira's voice crackled over the intercom. "Multiple Kzinti ships incoming! Brace for impact!" Donald grabbed Vera's arm, steadying her as the floor beneath them heaved. "We need to move the embryo," he shouted over the din of alarms and explosions. "This lab isn't safe anymore." Vera nodded, her scientist caution warring with the urgent need for action. "There's an unused storage bay on the lower level. We could convert it into a growth chamber, but it'll take time we don't have." "We'll make it work," Donald assured her. As they prepared to move the precious cargo, he caught Vera's eye. In that moment, something passed between them, a connection forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. While the sounds of battle raged above, Donald led a team in hastily converting the storage bay into a makeshift incubation facility. Vera supervised the delicate process of transferring the hybrid embryo, her hands steady despite the constant tremors shaking the asteroid. As they worked, a message crackled through on the emergency channel. Vera's eyes widened as she listened. "The Pack-led government," she said, turning to Donald. "They've sent reinforcements. They're engaging the Kzinti in orbit." A cheer went up among the Pack-led staff, but Donald's attention was fixed on the incubation chamber. The fetus had grown even larger, its features now clearly visible, a blend of human and Pack-led characteristics that was both alien and hauntingly familiar. "Vera," he said softly, drawing her attention back to their creation. "What have we done?" She joined him, her hand unconsciously finding his, as they watched the hybrid child floating peacefully amidst the chaos surrounding them. "We've created a new future," she replied, her voice filled with wonder and trepidation. "For better or worse." As if in response, the hybrid's eyes opened once more, its gaze seeming to pierce right through them. In that moment, Donald and Vera knew that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The asteroid shook again, reminding them that their challenges were far from finished. The Kzinti were still a threat, and somewhere out there, a human rescue team was no doubt closing in. But as Donald and Vera stood together, watching over their extraordinary creation, they silently vowed to protect it and each other, regardless of the cost. Consequences. As Donald and Vera stood together, watching over their extraordinary creation, the hybrid child opened its eyes once more, revealing a depth of awareness that sent shivers down their spines. "We need to move," Donald said, his voice low and urgent. "This area isn't secure enough." Vera nodded, her blue fingers dancing across the incubation chamber's controls. "There's a storage bay on the lower level. We can convert it into a growth chamber." They worked swiftly, adapting the storage bay into a makeshift laboratory. As they transferred the rapidly developing hybrid, now resembling a small child, Vera's scientific curiosity warred with a growing maternal instinct. "She needs a name," Vera said softly, her hand resting on the chamber. Donald paused, considering. "Lyra," he suggested. "It means harp in my language, a bridge between two worlds." Vera's lips curved into a smile. "Lyra," she repeated, tasting the word. "It's perfect." Over the next few hours, they watched in awe as Lyra's growth accelerated. Her features shifted, blending human and Pack-led characteristics into something entirely new. Her eyes, wide and curious, tracked their movements with startling intelligence. Alarms blared overhead, punctuated by the distant rumble of explosions. Donald's jury-rigged defenses were holding, but barely. He split his time between monitoring Lyra's development and reinforcing the base's shields, his engineering skills pushed to their limits. Vera, meanwhile, found herself facing an unexpected challenge. Lyra's cognitive abilities were advancing as rapidly as her physical form. Traditional educational methods were woefully inadequate. "She's already outgrown the language acquisition programs," Vera reported, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I've never seen anything like it." Donald joined her at the monitoring station, watching as Lyra manipulated complex holographic puzzles with ease. "We need to keep her stimulated," he said, "but we also need to consider the implications. If she continues to develop at this rate..." Their conversation was cut short by a violent tremor that shook the entire base. Zira's voice crackled over the intercom, tense with terrifying panic. "Multiple Kzinti boarding pods detected. They've breached the lower levels." Donald and Vera exchanged a look of unyielding commitment. They had prepared for this possibility, but the reality of it sent a jolt of fear through them both. "Initiate Defense Protocol Gamma," Donald instructed, his fingers flying over a nearby console. Throughout the base, makeshift barricades and energy fields sprang to life, creating a labyrinth of obstacles for the invading Kzinti. Vera turned her attention to Lyra, who now appeared to be a young adolescent. "We need to move her again," she said. "Somewhere more defensible." As they prepared to relocate, Lyra's eyes snapped open. She sat up in the incubation chamber, her movements fluid and precise. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady, carrying an otherworldly quality that sent chills down Donald's spine. "I can help," Lyra said, her gaze moving between Donald and Vera. "Let me assist in the defense of this facility." Donald hesitated, but Vera nodded. "Her abilities may be our best chance," she said. Together, they made their way through the chaos-filled corridors of the asteroid base. Pac-led security forces rushed past, weapons at the ready. The distant sound of energy weapons and feral Kzinti war cries echoed through the station. As they approached the central research facility, Donald's enhanced comm unit crackled to life. A voice he didn't recognize came through, clear and authoritative. "This is Commander Sarah James of Earth Alliance Forces. Donald Hansen, if you can hear this, we're here to extract you. Stand by for rendezvous coordinates." Donald's heart raced. The rescue team he had hoped for was here. But now, he looked at Vera, then at Lyra. The choice before him was impossible. Before he could respond, Lyra stepped forward. Her hands moved over a nearby control panel with inhuman speed and precision. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing the positions of Kzinti forces, Pac-led security, and a small team of human operatives making their way through the station. "We don't have much time," Lyra said, her voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. "The Kzinti are after something hidden within this asteroid, something ancient and powerful." Vera's eyes widened. The genetic research facility, it wasn't placed here by chance, was it? Donald's mind raced, connecting pieces of a puzzle he hadn't even known existed. "We need to find whatever it is before the Kzinti do," he said. "But first, we have to hold them off." As if in response to his words, a massive explosion rocked the base. Emergency lights flashed, bathing the corridor in an eerie red glow. The sound of approaching Kzinti warriors, their claws scraping against metal, filled the air. Lyra's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light. "I have an idea," she said, her voice filled with a confidence that belied her apparent age. "But I'll need both of you to trust me." Donald and Vera exchanged a look, years of scientific training warring with the inexplicable bond they felt with this extraordinary being they had created. In the end, there was only one choice. "What do you need us to do?" Donald asked as the sounds of battle drew ever closer. "Closer. I need access to the base's central computer system," Lyra said, her voice carrying an authority that belied her apparent youth. "From there, I can coordinate our defenses and buy us some time." Donald nodded, quickly leading them to a nearby terminal. As Lyra's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her eyes took on an otherworldly glow. The base's systems responded to her touch as if they were extensions of her own body. "Impressive," Vera murmured, watching as Lyra effortlessly navigated through layers of security protocols. Donald's enhanced comm unit crackled again. "Donald, this is Commander James. We're inside the base. What's your status?" Before Donald could respond, Lyra spoke up. "I've detected their presence," she said, her eyes still fixed on the holographic display. "They're moving through the lower levels, avoiding Kzinti patrols." Vera's expression tightened. "We can't let them interfere. Not when we're so close to a breakthrough?" Donald hesitated, torn between his loyalty to Earth and his commitment to the work he and Vera had started. The decision was made for him as another explosion rocked the base, closer this time. "We need to move," he said urgently. "Lyra, can you secure our path to the central research facility?" Lyra nodded, her fingers blurring as she manipulated the base's systems. "I've created a series of force fields and false corridors. It should slow down both the Kzinti and the human extraction team." As they made their way through the winding corridors of the asteroid base, Donald and Vera worked to fortify Lyra's defenses. Using scavenged materials and repurposed equipment, they created makeshift barriers and automated defense turrets. The sound of Kzinti war cries echoed through the station, punctuated by the staccato rhythm of energy weapons fire. Zira's voice came through on the emergency channel, strained and desperate. "We can't hold them much longer. They're pushing towards the central lab." Lyra's eyes narrowed as she processed the information. "The Kzinti, they're not just after us. They're searching for something specific within the asteroid." Vera's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The genetic research facility, it was built here for a reason. There must be something else, something we haven't discovered yet. They reached the central research facility, sealing the reinforced doors behind them. As Vera rushed to secure their research data, Donald worked with Lyra to access the base's historical archives. There, Lyra said, pointing to a section of encrypted data. It's hidden, but I can see the patterns. This asteroid, it's not just a rock, it's a repository of ancient technology. Donald leaned in, his engineering mind racing as he absorbed the information Lyra was uncovering. It's a terraforming device, he breathed, capable of manipulating genetic material on a massive scale. Vera joined them, her eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. This could be the key to solving the Packled's genetic problems. It might even explain why they chose this location for the hybrid program. Their moment of discovery was interrupted by a violent tremor that shook the entire facility. Alarms blared as Zira's voice came through once more, filled with panic. They've breached the outer defenses! We can't hold them back! Donald turned to Vera and Lyra, his mind racing. We need a way to stop the Kzinti without causing permanent harm. Something that will give us time to secure the terraforming device and complete our research. Vera hesitated, then nodded grimly. A targeted biological agent. Something that could temporarily incapacitate the Kzinti warriors. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with drive. I can help optimize the formula. My unique physiology gives me insights into both human and pack-led biology. As they worked feverishly to synthesize the agent, the sounds of battle drew ever closer. The makeshift defenses they had erected began to falter under the relentless Kzinti assault. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chaos. This is High Counselor Mira of the Pack-led government. We've broken through the Kzinti blockade and are approaching the base. Earth Alliance has agreed to negotiations. The unexpected announcement created a moment of confusion, felt by all parties involved in the conflict. Donald, Vera, and Lyra exchanged glances, realizing that the arrival of Pack-led officials and the presence of the human extraction team added new layers of complexity to their already precarious situation. As they completed the synthesis of the biological agent, they faced a new dilemma. How could they deploy it effectively against the Kzinti without harming their allies or the newly arrived human team? Lyra stepped forward, her expression resolute. I'll do it, she said. My hybrid physiology should protect me from the agent's effects. I can disperse it through the base's ventilation system. Donald and Vera exchanged a look of concern, but they knew time was running out. The sound of Kzinti claws scraping against metal echoed through the facility, growing louder by the second. Be careful, Donald said, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Lyra nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of dedication and something deeper, a connection that transcended their short time together. She took the canister containing the biological agent and moved towards the ventilation access panel. As Lyra prepared to embark on her dangerous mission, Donald and Vera turned their attention to securing the ancient terraforming device. The fate of the Pack-led species, the balance of power in this sector of space, and the future of human-alien relations all hung in the balance. The facility shuddered under another impact. Through the reinforced doors, they could hear the feral roars of Kzinti warriors, the shouts of Pack-led security forces, and now the measured commands of a human extraction team. Donald and Vera shared a look of steadfast perseverance. Whatever happened next, they knew their lives, and the course of interstellar history, would never be the same. The same. With a nod to each other, they turned their attention back to the task at hand. As Lyra prepared to enter the ventilation system, Donald and Vera made final adjustments to the biological agent. Their fingers flew over holographic displays, fine-tuning the formula to target Kzinti physiology with precision. This should incapacitate them without causing permanent harm, Vera said, her voice tight with concentration. Donald nodded, his eyes fixed on the readouts. Let's hope it works fast enough. The facility shuddered again, the sound of tearing metal echoing through the corridors. Zira's voice crackled over the intercom, strained and breathless. Outer perimeter breach. Captain Khazar's forces are inside. Lyra's eyes met Donald's, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, she took the canister and slipped into the narrow opening of the ventilation shaft. Her enhanced physiology allowed her to move with fluid grace through the tight space. As Lyra navigated the labyrinthine network of ducts, Donald and Vera worked frantically to fortify their position. They sealed off access points and rerouted power to critical systems, all while monitoring Lyra's progress through the facility's internal sensors. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Dr. Hansen, this is Commander James. We've made contact with High Counselor Mira's delegation. We're here to help." Donald hesitated, his hand hovering over the comm panel. Before he could respond, the door to the lab hissed open. Commander James stood there, flanked by a team of Earth Alliance operatives and a group of Packlet officials. "Looks like we arrived just in time," James said, her eyes scanning the room quickly. High Counselor Mira stepped forward, her expression a mix of concern and purpose. "Dr. Hansen, Dr. Vera, we need to secure this facility and your research. The fate of our people may depend on it." The unexpected alliance created a momentary lull in the conflict. Donald could hear the sounds of battle diminishing as both sides regrouped and reassessed the situation. Seizing the opportunity, Lyra activated the dispersal mechanism. A fine mist began to seep through the ventilation systems, spreading rapidly throughout the facility. The effect was almost immediate. Through the lab's security feeds, they watched as Kzinti warriors began to stumble and sway. The ferocious battle cries turned to confused growls, then to silence as the feline warriors slumped to the ground. However, the agent's impact wasn't limited to the Kzinti. Some of the Pakled security forces and members of Commander James's team also showed signs of disorientation, though to a lesser degree. "We need to stabilize them," Vera said, already moving towards the medical supplies. As they worked to treat the affected allies, Donald kept a close eye on the monitors tracking Lyra's vital signs. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Something's wrong," he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. "Lyra's neural activity is off the charts." Before anyone could respond, Lyra's voice came through the comm system, strained but filled with an otherworldly clarity. "Donald, Vera, I can see it. I can see everything." "Lyra, what's happening?" Donald asked, his voice tight with concern. "The agent. It's done something to me. I can perceive the facility in a way I never could before. And I know where it is. The device we've been searching for." Donald and Vera exchanged a look of surprise and trepidation. Commander James stepped forward, her hand resting on her sidearm. "What device?" But Donald was already moving, following Lyra's instructions as she guided them through the facility. They passed through corridors littered with unconscious Kzinti warriors and dazed security personnel. Deep within the asteroid, they found a hidden chamber. At its center stood a sleek, obelisk-like structure that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. "It's not just a terraforming device," Lyra's voice came through the comm, filled with awe. "It can rewrite genetic code on a massive scale." As they examined the ancient technology, the implications of their discovery began to sink in. This device could be the key to solving the Pakled's genetic issues, potentially eliminating the need for the hybrid program altogether. High Counselor Mira's eyes widened as she took in the sight. This could save our people?" The moment of triumph was short-lived. A low growl echoed through the chamber, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. Captain Czar appeared in the doorway, flanked by a small group of his most resilient warriors. Despite the obvious effects of the biological agent, their eyes burned with dedication. "That device belongs to the Kzinti Empire," Czar snarled, his voice slurred but still menacing. Commander James and her team raised their weapons, as did the Pakled security forces. The Kzinti warriors tensed, ready to spring into action despite their weakened state. In the midst of this tense standoff, Lyra emerged from a hidden access panel. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, and she moved with an eerie grace that seemed almost inhuman. Without a word, she approached the obelisk. As her hand touched its surface, the device hummed to life, its energy pulsing in sync with Lyra's heartbeat. All eyes turned to her, the various factions suddenly aware that control of the device, and perhaps the future of their respective species, now rested in the hands of this extraordinary hybrid. The chamber fell silent, save for the low hum of the ancient device. The fate of multiple worlds hung in the balance, with Lyra standing at the center of it all. Donald looked at Vera, then at Lyra, his mind racing to find a way out of this powder keg situation. As the effects of the biological agent began to wear off and the Kzinti warriors regained their strength, he knew they were running out of time. The choices made in the next few moments would shape the future of not just those present, but of entire civilizations across the galaxy. Galaxy. The tension in the chamber was palpable, a powder keg ready to explode at the slightest spark. Suddenly, Lyra's eyes widened, her body tensing as if struck by an invisible force. The ancient device pulsed in response, its energy synchronizing with her unique physiology. Before anyone could react, a blinding surge of energy erupted from the obelisk, bathing the chamber in an otherworldly glow. Donald felt his muscles seize, his body frozen in place. Around him, he saw the others similarly affected. Kzinti warriors, Packlet officials, and Earth Alliance operatives alike, all rendered immobile by the device's unexpected activation. In that moment of paralysis, Donald's mind raced. He locked eyes with Vera, seeing his own realization mirrored in her gaze. This was their chance. As the energy pulse began to fade, Donald felt control returning to his limbs. He lunged forward, his fingers closing around the edge of the obelisk. Vera was right beside him, her hands flying over the device's surface, searching for a way to secure it. "We need to move fast, Donald muttered, his voice tight with urgency. "This could be the key to solving everything." Vera nodded, her eyes scanning the alien symbols etched into the device. "It's not just terraforming," she breathed. "This thing can rewrite genetic code on a scale we've never seen before." A low growl from behind them signaled that their window of opportunity was closing. Captain Xar and his Kzinti warriors were shaking off the effects of the energy pulse, their enhanced physiology allowing them to recover more quickly than the others. With a roar of fury, Xar launched himself at Donald and Vera. "The device belongs to the Empire," he snarled, claws extended. Commander James, still fighting the lingering effects of the paralysis, managed to raise her weapon. "Protect the device!" she shouted to her team. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Kzinti warriors clashed with Earth Alliance operatives, while Packlet security forces struggled to join the fray. In the midst of the melee, High Counselor Mira stumbled, caught by a glancing blow from a Kzinti warrior's massive paw. Donald saw James hesitate, torn between defending the device and aiding the injured Packlet leader. "Go!" he shouted to the commander. "We'll hold them off." As James rushed to Mira's side, Donald and Vera braced themselves against the obelisk, ready to defend it with their lives. But before the Kzinti could reach them, another pulse of energy rippled through the chamber. Lyra stood at the center of the storm, her eyes glowing with an inner light. Her hands moved over the device's controls with an intuitive grace, as if she'd been born to operate this ancient technology. A targeted beam of energy lanced out from the obelisk, sweeping over the Kzinti warriors. One by one, they collapsed, their bodies twitching as the energy overwhelmed their nervous systems. Captain Xar, the last to fall, locked eyes with Donald. The Kzinti leader's expression was a mix of fury and grudging respect. "This isn't over," he growled before succumbing to unconsciousness. As the dust settled, High Counselor Mira struggled to her feet, leaning heavily on Commander James. Despite her injury, her eyes gleamed with tenacity. "Enough," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "This conflict benefits no one. We must negotiate." Donald looked to Vera, then to Lyra, who was slowly lowering her hands from the device's controls. The young hybrid's eyes had lost their eerie glow, but there was a new depth to her gaze, as if she had glimpsed secrets beyond mortal understanding. "She's right," Vera said softly. "This device, it's more powerful than we ever imagined. We need to understand it before we do anything else." As if in response to her words, the chamber began to shudder. Lights flickered and a low, ominous hum filled the air. Donald's engineering instincts kicked into high gear, recognizing the signs of a system-wide malfunction. "Something's wrong," he said, his fingers flying over the nearest control panel. "The device's activation has triggered some kind of security protocol." Alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Sections of the corridor outside the chamber sealed shut with heavy blast doors. Donald watched in horror as power readings fluctuated wildly across the base. "It's not just a security system," Lyra said, her voice distant as if she was listening to something only she could hear. "It's a self-destruct sequence. The entire asteroid, it's going to tear itself apart." The gravity of the situation sank in. Former enemies exchanged looks of shared dread, realizing that their conflict had awakened a force that threatened to destroy them all. "How long do we have?" Commander James asked, her tactical mind already searching for solutions. Donald's hands danced over the controls, his mind racing to decipher the alien systems. "Minutes, maybe less. We need to find a way to override the sequence or—" He left the consequences unspoken. They all knew what was at stake. "There has to be a way," Vera insisted, joining Donald at the control panel. "Lyra, can you interface with the system again? Maybe you can communicate with it. Make it understand we're not a threat." Lyra nodded, placing her hands on the obelisk once more. As she closed her eyes in concentration, Donald turned to the others. "We need to work together," he said, his gaze sweeping over humans, pack-leads, and the slowly stirring Zinti. "Our only chance is to combine our knowledge and resources. Pack-led biotech, Kzinti weapon systems, human ingenuity, it's the only way we'll survive this." For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, nods of agreement rippled through the chamber. As alarms continued to wail and the asteroid shuddered around them, the unlikely alliance began to form. Donald turned back to the control panel, his mind already formulating a plan. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but as he looked at Vera's determined face and Lyra's serene concentration, he felt a glimmer of hope. Time was running out, and the fate of not just those present, but potentially entire civilizations, hung in the balance. As systems failed and the self-destruct sequence counted down, Donald took a deep breath and prepared to face the greatest challenge of his life. Career. As the alarms blared and the asteroid shuddered around them, Donald felt a surge of dedication. He turned to the assembled group, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to pool our resources," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Pack-led biotech, Kzinti weapon systems, human ingenuity, it's our only chance." As if in response to his words, Lyra's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Her hands moved across the obelisk's surface with preternatural speed and precision. "I can see it," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "The mainframe, the systems, I can access them all. Access them." The chamber fell silent as everyone watched Lyra work. Suddenly, the blaring alarms cut off, replaced by an eerie quiet. The shuddering of the asteroid slowed, then stopped entirely. "She's done it," Vera breathed, her eyes wide with a mixture of pride and concern. "She's halted the self-destruct sequence." Donald didn't waste a moment. "This buys us time, but we need a permanent solution." He turned to the others, his gaze sweeping over humans, pack-leads, and Kzinti alike. "I have a plan, but it's going to take all of us working together." He quickly outlined his idea for a hybrid override system, combining elements from all three species' technologies. As he spoke, he could see the skepticism in some eyes, particularly those of the Kzinti. Captain Czar, still unsteady on his feet, growled softly. "And why should we trust you, human? This could be a trick to gain control of our weapon systems." Before Donald could respond, High Counselor Mira stepped forward, wincing slightly from her injury. "Because if we don't work together, none of us will survive. This is bigger than our individual conflicts now." Her words seemed to resonate with the group. Even Czar nodded grudgingly, his tactical mind no doubt recognizing the truth in her statement. As the unlikely alliance began to form, Vera approached Lyra, who was still connected to the obelisk. She ran a quick scan, her eyes widening at the results. "Donald, you need to see this," she called, her voice tight with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Lyra's DNA, it's changing, adapting in real time. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Donald joined her, studying the readouts with growing amazement. "It's incorporating beneficial traits from both human and packlet genomes," he muttered. "This could be the key to our override system." As they discussed the implications of Lyra's evolving abilities, the rest of the group sprang into action. Commander James and her team began working on an interface to bridge the gap between human, Pac-led, and Kzinti systems. High Counselor Mira coordinated the Pac-led efforts, directing their biotech specialists to integrate their unique technology into the override system. Even Captain Xar, after a moment's hesitation, began sharing crucial information about Kzinti weapon systems. His knowledge proved invaluable, filling in gaps that would have taken the others hours to decipher. As they worked, the asteroid itself seemed to fight back. Corridors shifted and sealed, forcing the team to constantly adapt their plans. Donald found himself working side by side with a Kzinti engineer, their previous animosity forgotten in the face of the immediate threat. The reconfiguration is accelerating, the Kzinti growled, his claws flying over a control panel. We need to move faster. Donald nodded, his mind racing. Lyra, he called out, can you slow down the internal changes? Buy us more time? Lyra's eyes flickered, and for a moment, the shifting of the asteroid's structure seemed to pause. I can hold it, she said, her voice strained. But not for long. There's something else, something about the device's purpose. As Lyra shared her discovery about the terraforming device's true nature and origins, Donald felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering, but they didn't have time to fully process them now. We'll deal with that later, he said, locking eyes with Vera. Right now, we need to focus on survival. Vera nodded, already moving to integrate Lyra's unique genetic structure into the override system. As they worked, Donald couldn't help but marvel at the young hybrid's potential. She was the bridge between worlds in more ways than one. Their progress was suddenly interrupted by a series of energy blasts. Hidden weapon systems had emerged from the walls, targeting the group with deadly precision. Defensive systems, Commander James shouted, diving for cover. They must have detected our tampering. In the chaos that followed, Donald watched in amazement as Captain Xar took charge. The Kzinti leader barked orders in multiple languages, organizing the disparate group into an effective fighting unit. Kzinti warriors fought side by side with Pac-led security forces and human soldiers, covering the scientists as they worked. As the battle raged around them, Donald and Vera raced to complete the override system. Time was running out, and the asteroid's defenses were becoming more aggressive by the minute. We're almost there, Vera said, her fingers flying over the controls. But we need a way to broadcast the shutdown signal throughout the entire base. Donald looked at Lyra, still connected to the obelisk, and made a decision. Lyra, he said, his voice grave, we need you to channel the shutdown signal through the terraforming device. It's our only chance. Vera's eyes widened in alarm. Donald, no. We don't know what that kind of power could do to her. Her abilities are still developing. It could overload her entire system. For a moment, Donald hesitated, torn between the need for survival and his concern for Lyra. But before he could respond, Lyra spoke. I'll do it, she said, her voice filled with a calm persistence that belied her youth. I can feel the device's power. I think I can control it. As the group gathered around Lyra and the terraforming device, Donald felt the weight of the moment. Everything they had been through, every conflict and misunderstanding, had led to this point. Humans, Pac-leds, and Kzinti stood united, their fates intertwined. Lyra took a deep breath, her hands planted firmly on the obelisk. As she began to channel the device's power, her body started to glow with an otherworldly energy. The asteroid trembled, systems flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if everything might tear itself apart. Donald held his breath, acutely aware that the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of interstellar relations. As the energy built to a crescendo, he reached out and took Vera's hand, drawing strength from her presence. The chamber was bathed in a blinding light, and Donald closed his eyes, hoping against hope that their daring plan would succeed. Succeed. The energy surged through Lyra, her body lifting slightly off the ground as she channeled the full power of the ancient terraforming device. The asteroid base shook violently, and Donald tightened his grip on Vera's hand, bracing for the unknown. A blinding flash erupted from the device, engulfing the chamber in brilliant white light. Donald instinctively shielded his eyes, feeling the raw energy pulsing through the air. When the light faded, an eerie silence fell over the room. Donald blinked rapidly, his vision slowly returning. The first thing he noticed was the absence of alarms and the stillness of the base. The hostile systems had gone dark, defensive weapons retreating into hidden compartments. "It worked," Commander James breathed, her voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. But their victory was short-lived. A soft thud drew Donald's attention, and he turned to see Lyra collapse to the ground. "Lyra!" Vera cried, rushing to the young hybrid's side. Donald was right behind her, his mind already shifting into medical mode. Lyra lay motionless, her skin still glowing faintly with residual energy. Donald pressed his fingers to her neck, feeling for a pulse. "She's alive," he announced, "but her vital signs are erratic." Vera ran a quick scan, her brow furrowing as she interpreted the results. Her genetic structure is still in flux. The device's energy hasn't fully dissipated from her system. As they tended to Lyra, a low rumbling sound filled the chamber. Donald looked up to see cracks spreading across the terraforming device's surface, erratic pulses of energy emanating from its core. Captain Czar's ears flattened against his head, his warrior instincts kicking in. "The chamber is compromised," he growled. "We must evacuate immediately." No one argued. Donald scooped Lyra into his arms, her body unnaturally light. The group moved swiftly towards the exit, Kzinti warriors taking point while Packlet engineers brought up the rear. They had barely cleared the chamber when a deafening crack echoed through the base. Donald glanced back to see chunks of ceiling crashing down, obscuring the terraforming device in a cloud of dust and debris. "Keep moving," Commander James shouted, ushering the group forward. As they rounded a corner, a section of wall ahead of them suddenly gave way. Donald instinctively shielded Lyra as dust and small debris rained down. When it cleared, they found themselves staring into a vast, previously hidden cavern. High Counselor Mira limped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "By the ancestors," she whispered, "look at all this technology." The cavern stretched far beyond what they could see, filled with rows upon rows of alien devices. Some hummed with dormant energy, while others stood silent, their purposes a mystery. "We can't stay here," Commander James insisted, eyeing the unstable tunnel behind them. "The structural integrity of this entire section is compromised." High Counselor Mira turned, her face set with purpose. "We can't leave either. This discovery could change everything for our people, for all our peoples." As the leaders debated, Donald focused on Lyra. Her breathing had steadied, but her features were subtly shifting, becoming more alien while still retaining her human characteristics. "Donald," Vera said softly, drawing his attention to her scanner. "Look at this. Her DNA, it's evolving at an incredible rate." Before Donald could respond, the base's system suddenly flickered to life. Nearby control panels lit up, displaying information in a strange hybrid language that somehow incorporated elements of human, Pakled, and Kzinti communication. Captain Czar stepped forward, his claws hovering over the interface. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It's as if the base has adapted to us." Donald's mind raced, connecting the dots. "It's Lyra," he said, looking down at the unconscious hybrid in his arms. "Somehow, her genetic structure has been integrated into the base's core programming. She's become a living key to this technology." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Vera voiced what they were all thinking. "If that's true, we can't risk removing her from the asteroid. There's no telling what might happen." Captain Khazar's tail twitched, his tactical mind already considering the possibilities. "We need to explore this cavern," he said. "A small team, with representatives from each of our species. The rest can focus on securing our position and tending to the injured." Commander James nodded reluctantly. "Agreed, but we move carefully. We still don't know the full extent of what we're dealing with here." As plans for the expedition took shape, Donald and Vera worked to stabilize Lyra's condition. They set up a makeshift medical area, monitoring her vital signs and the ongoing changes to her DNA. "Her genetic adaptability is off the charts," Vera muttered, reviewing the latest scans. "She could potentially interface with a wide range of alien technologies. It's incredible, but also terrifying." Donald nodded, understanding the double-edged nature of Lyra's newfound abilities. We'll need to proceed cautiously. There's no telling how this could affect her long-term or what other changes might occur. As the joint expedition team prepared to venture into the cavern, tension began to build among the three species. Donald could see the calculations happening behind Captain Kazar's eyes, no doubt considering the military applications of their discovery. High Counselor Mira spoke in hushed tones with her advisors, likely strategizing how to use this technology to address the genetic crisis. Commander James approached Donald, her expression grim. We're walking a fine line here, she said quietly. We need to maintain this alliance while ensuring Earth's interests are protected. Can I count on you to keep a level head? Donald nodded, fully aware of the delicate diplomatic situation. Of course, Commander, but our first priority has to be Lyra's well-being. We still don't fully understand what's happening to her. As if on cue, Lyra stirred in her makeshift bed. Her eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. Donald and Vera leaned in, watching as awareness returned to her gaze. When Lyra's eyes fully opened, Donald had to suppress a gasp. Her irises glowed with an otherworldly light, pulsing in time with the distant hum of alien technology. She blinked, focusing on Donald's face. What happened? She asked, her voice carrying an odd harmonic quality. I feel different. Before Donald could answer, alarms began to blare throughout the base. Captain Czar bounded over, his fur standing on end. The cavern, he growled. Something's activating. Donald helped Lyra to her feet, noting how she moved with a newfound grace, as if perfectly in tune with the base around her. As they joined the others at the cavern's entrance, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater than they could imagine. The expedition team stood ready, equipped, their equipment checked and ready. Donald cast one last glance at Lyra before joining them, his mind racing with questions about her condition and the mysteries that lay ahead. As they ventured into the cavern, the walls seemed to pulse with an ethereal energy. Donald's tricorder hummed, struggling to process the influx of data from the alien technology surrounding them. Zira, the pack-led security officer, moved cautiously, her eyes darting from one strange device to another. Kraz, the Kzinti warrior, sniffed the air, his whiskers twitching as he tried to detect any potential threats. Look at this, Donald said, gesturing to a series of intricate symbols etched into a nearby pillar. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. As he reached out to touch the symbols, a holographic display suddenly flickered to life, bathing the cavern in a soft blue glow. The team watched in awe as images of an ancient, highly advanced civilization materialized before them. Incredible, Zira breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. They look almost pack-led, but different. The hologram shifted, showing the aliens manipulating complex genetic structures. Donald's scientific mind raced as he observed their advanced techniques. They were masters of genetic engineering, he noted, far beyond anything we've achieved. As the display continued, however, the images took a dark turn. The team watched in horror as the consequences of the aliens' unchecked experimentation unfolded. Entire populations mutated beyond recognition, ecosystems collapsed, and finally the civilization itself crumbled into extinction. A cautionary tale, Kraz growled, his tail twitching nervously. Donald nodded grimly, his thoughts turning to Lyra and her rapidly evolving genetic structure. We need to be careful with what we've unleashed here, he said. As they delved deeper into the cavern, Donald spotted a console that looked vaguely familiar. Drawing on his engineering expertise, he approached it cautiously. This interface, I think I can work with this, he muttered, his fingers dancing over the alien controls. After a few tense moments, the console sprung to life. A vast database flickered across the screen, revealing detailed genetic profiles of countless species from across the galaxy. By the ancestors, Zira gasped, leaning in for a closer look. The pack-lead genetic structure, it's all here, and solutions to our crisis. Donald's excitement was tempered by a growing unease. This information, in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic, he warned. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The walls of the cavern began to shift and reform, creating new passageways and sealing off others. "We need to get back," Kraz snarled, already turning towards their original entrance. As they raced through the changing labyrinth, Donald's communicator crackled to life. Vera's voice came through, tight with tension. "Donald, you need to get back here now. Something's happening with Lyra." They burst into the main chamber to find chaos. Lyra hovered above the ground, her eyes glowing with the same otherworldly light as the terraforming device. The assembled group watched in a mixture of awe and fear as she unconsciously manipulated the very structure of the asteroid around them. "Her connection to the base's systems is growing stronger," Vera explained, her eyes never leaving her scanner. "She's changing the internal layout, opening new chambers. I've never seen anything like it." Before Donald could respond, a violent shudder ran through the entire base. Alarms blared as the long-dormant propulsion system roared to life. "We're moving!" Commander James shouted over the din. "The whole asteroid is on the move." As the leaders of the three factions huddled together, urgently discussing their options, Donald made his way to Lyra's side. Her body pulsed with energy, her features subtly shifting between human and alien characteristics. "Lyra," he called softly, reaching out to her. "Can you hear me?" For a moment, her eyes focused on him, a flicker of recognition passing across her face. Then she was gone again, lost in the vast network of alien technology that now flowed through her. Vera approached, her face lined with concern and excitement. "Donald, I've made a breakthrough," she said, showing him her latest scans. "Lyra's hybrid physiology, it's allowing her to interface directly with the alien tech. She's become a living conduit between organic life and this advanced system." Donald's mind raced with the implications. Could this be the key to controlled genetic modification, without the disastrous consequences we saw in the holograms? Before Vera could answer, Captain Kazar's voice cut through the chaos. "The asteroid's trajectory has stabilized," he announced. "We appear to be heading towards a nearby star system." As the assembled group turned their attention to the main view screen, Donald couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation mixed with dread. The image showed a series of planets, some potentially habitable, growing larger as they approached. High Counselor Mira stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. "This could be the answer to all our problems," she said softly. "A fresh start for all our peoples." Commander James shook her head, her expression grim. "Or it could be the beginning of a conflict that tears the sector apart." As the leaders debated their next move, Donald turned back to Lyra. Her body had settled back to the ground, but the glow of alien energy still pulsed beneath her skin. He knew that whatever they decided, she would be at the center of it all. The asteroid continued its journey through space, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and potential futures of three species. As Donald watched Lyra's chest rise and fall with each breath, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something that would change the course of galactic history forever. The asteroid's unexpected movement sent ripples of tension through the assembled group. As the leaders huddled together, urgently discussing their options, Donald kept his eyes fixed on Lyra. Her body continued to pulse with energy, suspended in midair as if held aloft by invisible strings. "We need to form a united front," Commander James said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Our survival depends on working together." High Counselor Mira nodded reluctantly. "Agreed, but how do we proceed?" Captain Czar's tail twitched as he considered their options. "We form a coalition, pool our resources and expertise." Over the next few hours, as the asteroid hurtled through space towards its unknown destination, the leaders hammered out the details of their alliance. Donald split his attention between the negotiations and Lyra's condition, his mind racing with possibilities and concerns. Vera approached him, her face a mixture of excitement and worry. "Donald, I've made a breakthrough," she said, showing him her latest scans. "Lyra's hybrid DNA, it contains sequences that could potentially solve the pack-led infertility crisis." Donald's eyes widened as he processed the implications. "That's incredible, but it raises ethical questions," Vera finished, nodding grimly. "We can't use her genetic material without her consent, and in her current state." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the base. Alarms blared as the ancient system sprang to life around them. "The terraforming device is activating," Zira called out, her fingers flying over a nearby console. Donald rushed to join her, his engineering instincts kicking in. As he examined the readouts, a chill ran down his spine. If we don't control this activation, it could have catastrophic consequences. Captain Czar bounded over, his fur standing on end. "We need defenses. Now!" As the Sinti warrior began repurposing their weapon systems, integrating them with the base's technology, Donald delved deeper into the device's control systems. His heart raced as he uncovered a crucial piece of information. "There's a failsafe," he announced, drawing the attention of the coalition leaders. "But it requires a specific genetic key to activate." All eyes turned to Lyra's floating form. "Her hybrid DNA," Vera breathed. "It might be our only chance." Just then, Lyra's eyes snapped open. The glow that had suffused her body intensified, and when she spoke, her voice carried an otherworldly resonance. "I see it all," she said, her gaze unfocused. "The systems, the stars, everything." Donald approached her cautiously. "Lyra, can you hear me?" Her eyes locked onto his, a flicker of recognition passing across her face. "Donald, it's so vast. I can feel the asteroid moving, changing." Before he could respond, a new alert sounded. Kraz, manning the long-range scanners, growled out a report. "We've entered a star system, multiple planets. One appears to be inhabited." The revelation sent a shock wave through the coalition. Commander James stepped forward, her face grave. "We need to make a decision. Do we proceed knowing we might alter the course of an entire civilization's development? Or do we try to stop this, potentially losing our only chance at solving our own crises?" Donald looked from Lyra to the leaders, then back to the screens displaying the approaching planet. The weight of their decision pressed down on him, the fate of multiple species hanging in the balance. "Lyra," he said softly, reaching out to her, "we need your help. Can you access the failsafe system?" Her brow furrowed in concentration. I think so, but it's complex, interconnected with everything else." As Lyra struggled to navigate the vast network of alien technology, now integrated with her consciousness, the coalition leaders argued over their next move. The asteroid continued its inexorable approach towards the inhabited planet, each passing moment bringing them closer to a point of no return. Donald worked feverishly alongside Vera and Zira, trying to find a way to communicate more effectively with Lyra in her altered state. They knew that her cooperation was crucial not only for activating the failsafe, but also for navigating the ethical minefield they now found themselves in. Time seemed to stretch and compress as they raced against the clock. The vibrations from the terraforming device grew stronger, and the base's systems flickered with increasing frequency. Outside, the stars gave way to the looming presence of a blue-green planet eerily similar to Earth but undoubtedly alien. As Donald prepared to make another attempt at guiding Lyra through the failsafe activation, a new alert blared through the base. Captain Khazar's voice rang out, tight with tension. "Unknown ship approaching. Galactic Alliance markings." The coalition froze, their internal conflicts momentarily forgotten as they faced this new external threat. Donald's mind raced, calculating the possible outcomes of this encounter. He knew that their next actions would shape not only their own futures, but potentially the course of galactic history itself. With the inhabited planet growing larger in their view screens and an Alliance ship closing in, the coalition faced a moment of truth. Their hastily formed alliance would be put to the ultimate test, forcing them to confront questions of survival, ethics, and the very nature of their place in the universe. The tension in the room was palpable as the coalition leaders exchanged worried glances. Donald took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice cutting through the nervous murmurs. "Our options are limited, but we're not without hope." High Counselor Mira stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with perseverance. "We must convene immediately. The fate of our people, of all our peoples, hangs in the balance." As if on cue, Captain Khazar and Commander James moved to join her. The trio quickly withdrew to a nearby alcove, their hushed voices barely audible over the hum of the base's systems. Donald turned his attention back to Lyra, who remained suspended in midair, her eyes unfocused and distant. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Vera, her face etched with concern. "We need to establish a more stable connection with her," Vera said, gesturing to the floating form of their hybrid companion. "Her altered state might be the key to everything." Nodding in agreement, Donald set to work. He and Vera huddled over a makeshift workstation, their fingers flying across holographic interfaces as they cobbled together a neural interface using a combination of human, Pac-led, and alien technology. As they worked, Zira and Kraz approached, their expressions a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We've identified a potential target," Zira announced, her voice barely above a whisper. "An icy moon orbiting a gas giant in the system's outer reaches. If we can redirect the terraforming device, we could create a new home without interfering with the inhabited planet," Kraz finished, his tail twitching with nervous energy. Donald's mind raced with the possibilities. It was a bold plan, but one that could solve their immediate crisis while adhering to their ethical principles. Before he could respond, the coalition leaders emerged from their impromptu meeting. High Counselor Mira addressed the group, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've reached a decision," she announced. "We will attempt to terraform the moon. It's our best chance at survival without compromising our values." A wave of relief washed over the assembled group, but it was short-lived. Captain Czar's gravelly voice cut through the moment of hope. "The Alliance ship is still approaching," he growled. "We need to buy ourselves more time." Commander James nodded grimly. "Captain, can your enhanced defensive systems scramble their sensors?" Czar's whiskers twitched as he considered the question. "Yes, but it will draw attention. More ships may come." "It's a risk we'll have to take," James replied. As Khazar moved to implement the defensive measures, Donald and Vera returned to their work on the neural interface. Time seemed to stretch and compress as they raced against the clock, the looming presence of the inhabited planet a constant reminder of the stakes they faced. Finally, after what felt like hours but could only have been minutes, Donald stepped back from the completed interface. "It's ready," he announced, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. Vera carefully attached the device to Lyra's temples, her hands steady despite the pressure. As the connection established, Lyra's body jerked, her eyes flying open with a gasp. I can see it all," she whispered, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "The genetic database, it's vast, beyond comprehension." Donald leaned in, his heart pounding. "Lyra, we need your help. Can you access the terraforming device's fail-safe mechanism?" Lyra's brow furrowed in concentration. "Yes, I think so. But it's complex, intertwined with every system." As Donald relayed the information to the others, Vera's face paled. "The strain on her system, it could be too much," she warned. Tenacity set in Donald's features. "We need to develop a stabilizer," he said, turning to Vera. "Something to protect her during the process." Vera nodded, already moving towards the medical bay. "I'll synthesize a compound using Pac-led biotech and human pharmaceutical techniques. It should mirror Lyra's hybrid structure." As Vera set to work, Zira and Kraz began final preparations for the terraforming operation. They calibrated the device, aiming it precisely at the chosen moon. Suddenly, a violent shudder ran through the asteroid. Alarms blared as debris from their journey through the system began to interfere with the base's systems. Captain Khazar sprang into action, organizing a team to clear the space around them. "We'll use Khazinti energy weapons and repurposed mining equipment," he announced, his warriors already moving to carry out his orders. From the planet's surface, the debris-clearing operation must have looked like a dazzling light show. Donald knew it only increased their risk of detection, but they had no choice. As the final preparations fell into place, Donald found himself at the center of a storm of activity. Lyra, connected to the terraforming device through the neural interface, pulsed with otherworldly energy. Vera stood ready with the genetic stabilizers, her face a mask of concentration. "Now!" Donald called out, his voice carrying across the command center. The terraforming device roared to life, a massive beam of energy shooting forth from the asteroid. It struck the icy moon, and even from their distant vantage point, they could see the surface beginning to transform. Lyra's body arched, glowing with an intense light. Vera quickly administered the stabilizers, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "It's working," Zira called out, her eyes fixed on the readings from the moon. "The ice is melting. Oceans are forming. It's incredible." But their elation was short-lived. Lyra's face contorted in pain, her body trembling with the effort of maintaining the connection. "We need to hurry," Vera warned, her voice tight with concern. "She can't keep this up indefinitely." As if to underscore the urgency of their situation, a new alert sounded. Kraz, monitoring the long-range sensors, let out a low growl. "Xinti battle fleet detected," he announced, his fur standing on end. "They've entered the system." Captain Czar's eyes widened in shock. "My people," he muttered, his tail lashing back and forth. "They must have detected the energy signatures." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Commander James barked orders to prepare for potential conflict, while High Counselor Mira attempted to establish communication with the approaching fleet. Donald found himself torn, his attention split between the transforming moon, Lyra's struggling form, and the looming threat of the Xinti warships. He knew that the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the course of galactic history. As the Cine fleet drew nearer and the moon's transformation continued at a breakneck pace, Donald steeled himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Coalition's bold plan teetered on a knife's edge, with success and disaster both equally possible outcomes. The asteroid trembled as the terraforming beam continued to reshape the distant moon. Donald's eyes darted between the holographic displays, each one depicting a different facet of their increasingly complex situation. The Xinti fleet's approach, the moon's rapid transformation, and Lyra's deteriorating condition all demanded immediate attention. Vera's voice cut through the cacophony of alarms and status reports. "Donald, Lyra's vitals are dropping rapidly. We need to stabilize her now." Without hesitation, Donald rushed to Lyra's side. Her body convulsed, skin shimmering with an otherworldly light as she channeled the immense energies of the terraforming device. Vera quickly prepared another dose of the genetic stabilizers, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Hold her steady," Vera instructed, positioning the hypospray against Lyra's neck. As the stabilizers entered Lyra's system, her convulsions subsided, but her breathing remained shallow and erratic. Donald watched the biomonitors anxiously, willing the numbers to improve. "It's working," he said, relief evident in his voice. "But we're not out of the woods yet." Across the command center, Captain Czar's gravelly voice rose above the din. "High Counselor, Commander, we must act quickly. My people are not known for their patience." High Counselor Mira nodded gravely. "Agreed. What do you propose, Captain?" Khazar's whiskers twitched as he spoke. "Let me address them. I can explain our situation, appeal to their sense of scientific curiosity. The terraforming technology could benefit all our species." Commander James frowned, her tactical mind assessing the risks. "It's a gamble, but it might be our best option." "Do it, Captain." As Khazar moved to the communications array, Zira called out from her station. "The moon's transformation is accelerating. Oceans are forming and... Wait, there's something else." Donald left Lyra's side, trusting Vera to monitor her condition. He joined Zira at the sensor displays, his eyes widening at the data scrolling across the screen. "It's impossible," he muttered. "The moon's developing a biosphere, but it's happening far too quickly." Kraz leaned in, his tail swishing excitedly. "Not just developing. Look at these readings. It's as if the life forms are being guided somehow." A chill ran down Donald's spine as realization dawned. He turned to look at Lyra's suspended form, her face serene despite the chaos around them. "It's her. Lyra's consciousness is influencing the moon's development." Before anyone could respond to this revelation, a new alert blared through the command center. Commander James cursed under her breath. "The Alliance ships have broken through our sensor scrambling. They're hailing us." As James moved to address the Alliance, Captain Khazar's voice filled the room, speaking in the harsh, guttural tones of the Xinti language. The Coalition members held their breath, the fate of their mission hanging on the response of the approaching fleet. Moments stretched into an eternity before Khazar turned back to the group, his eyes gleaming. They're intrigued. They've agreed to send a delegation to discuss the technology. A collective sigh of relief swept through the command center, but it was short-lived. Zira's voice, tinged with panic, cut through the momentary calm. The moon's transformation is affecting the system's gravitational balance. If we don't act soon, it could destabilize the entire system, including the inhabited planet. Donald's mind raced, processing the cascade of crises before them. They needed Lyra's insight, her unique connection to the alien technology, but in her current state, communication was impossible. An idea formed, desperate and dangerous. "Vera," he called out, moving back to Lyra's side. "I think I know how we can talk to Lyra without fully disconnecting her from the system." Vera looked at him skeptically. "What are you proposing?" "A localized neural interface," Donald explained quickly. "We can create a buffer, a space where part of Lyra's consciousness can interact with us without losing her connection to the terraforming process." Vera's expression was a mix of concern and purpose. "It's risky, Donald. We don't fully understand the alien technology or how it's integrated with Lyra's mind." "I know," Donald admitted, "but we're out of options. We need her input to navigate these negotiations and stabilize the system." After a moment's hesitation, Vera nodded. "All right, let's do it." As they began preparations for the delicate procedure, the command center buzzed with activity. Commander James coordinated with the Alliance ships, carefully explaining their situation without revealing too much. High Counselor Mira and Captain Xar prepared for the arrival of the Sinti delegation, while Zira and Kraz worked feverishly to mitigate the gravitational disturbances threatening the system. Donald focused on the task at hand, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface as he designed the neural buffer. Vera stood ready, monitoring Lyra's vitals and preparing to intervene at the first sign of trouble. "Ready?" Donald asked, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Vera took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." Donald initiated the sequence, and a low hum filled the air as energy coursed through the newly created neural interface. Lyra's body tensed, her eyes moving rapidly behind closed lids. "Come on, Lyra," Donald whispered. "Come back to us." Suddenly, Lyra's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Donald? Vera, I can see everything. The moon, the system, the ship. It's all connected." Donald leaned in, his heart pounding. "Lyra, we need your help. The system's becoming unstable, and we have to negotiate with the Sinti and the Alliance. Can you help us?" Lyra's glowing eyes fixed on Donald, and for a moment he glimpsed the vastness of the universe reflected in them. "Yes," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power and understanding. "I can help, but we must act quickly. The balance is shifting, and the consequences could be catastrophic." As Lyra began to share her insights, the Coalition braced themselves for the challenges ahead. The fate of multiple species, an entire star system, and perhaps the future of galactic diplomacy itself now rested on their next moves. As Lyra began to share her insights, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the neural interface. The command center erupted in a blinding flash, and alarms blared as systems overloaded. Donald stumbled back, shielding his eyes from the intense light. "Lyra," he called out, reaching for her. But it was too late. The energy surge had disrupted the delicate connection, and Lyra's form convulsed violently. The terraforming beam flickered and sputtered, its steady stream of energy now pulsing erratically. Vera rushed to Lyra's side, her medical scanner already in hand. "Her neural patterns are destabilizing. We need to get her out of the interface." Donald's fingers flew across the holographic controls, desperately trying to stabilize the connection. "If we disconnect her now, we could lose control of the entire process." A violent tremor shook the asteroid, nearly knocking them off their feet. Zira's voice cut through the chaos, her usual calm replaced by urgency. "The terraforming disruption is causing massive gravitational fluctuations. The entire system is becoming unstable." High Counselor Mira, Captain Xar, and Commander James burst into the control room, their faces etched with concern. Report! Commander James barked, her eyes darting between the various holographic displays. Donald quickly summarized the situation, his words tumbling out in a rush. The neural interface overloaded. We've lost control of the terraforming process, and it's causing gravitational anomalies throughout the system. Captain Xar growled, his fur standing on end. The inhabited planet? Zira shook her head, her tentacles writhing in agitation. Its orbit is already beginning to destabilize. If we don't act quickly, the consequences could be catastrophic. As if in response to Zira's words, a shimmering apparition materialized in the center of the control room. It was Lyra, or at least a holographic projection of her consciousness. Her form flickered and shifted, sometimes clear and defined, other times barely more than a ghostly outline. The creators! Lyra's voice echoed, distorted and fragmented. They ascended, left behind safeguards. Donald stepped toward the hologram, his heart racing. Lyra, what are you trying to tell us? What safeguards? Balance must be maintained, Lyra continued, her words coming in broken bursts. The device can restore, but at a cost. Before anyone could question her further, a new alert sounded. Commander James cursed under her breath. The Kzinti delegation has arrived. Admiral Cror is requesting immediate docking clearance. High Counselor Mira's face tightened with concern. We can't delay them, not with the gravitational crisis escalating. Grant them clearance, but keep them confined to the diplomatic sector. As the coalition grappled with this new complication, Donald's mind raced. He stared at the holographic displays, watching the gravitational waves ripple through the star system. Suddenly, an idea struck him. The asteroid's propulsion system, he muttered, then louder. We can use it. If we calibrate it precisely with the terraforming device, we might be able to generate controlled energy pulses to counteract the gravitational disturbances. Vera looked up from her work on Lyra's stabilizers, her eyes wide. It's risky, Donald. We'd be pushing both systems to their limits. We don't have a choice, Donald replied, already moving to the engineering console. It's our best shot at restoring balance to the system. As Donald began his calculations, Vera returned to her work on the genetic stabilizers. She glanced at the newly arrived Kzinti delegation through the control room's observation window, an idea forming. Their biology, she murmured, reaching for her scanner. If I can incorporate elements of Kzinti genetics into the stabilizer formula, it might be the key to stabilizing Lyra's fluctuating genetic structure. While Donald and Vera worked feverishly on their respective tasks, Commander James engaged in tense negotiations with the approaching Galactic Alliance fleet. Her voice was steady, but the strain was evident in her tightened jaw and clenched fists. I understand your concerns, Fleet Commander, she said, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. But I assure you, we have the situation under control. Any military action at this point could jeopardize not only our mission, but the stability of the entire star system. Captain Xar, sensing the growing threat, took charge of the asteroid's defenses. His claws danced across the weapons console, integrating Kzinti technology with the base's ancient systems. We must be prepared for all eventualities, he growled, his tail lashing back and forth. High Counselor Mira watched the flurry of activity around her, her mind working to find a diplomatic solution. She stepped forward, addressing the room. We need to present a united front, she declared, her voice cutting through the chaos. I propose a joint operation, our coalition, the Kzinti delegation, and the Galactic Alliance. Together, we can stabilize the system and complete the moon's transformation. Her words were met with skeptical looks, but before anyone could respond, Lyra's holographic form suddenly solidified. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she interfaced directly with the asteroid systems. I see it now, she said, her voice resonating with newfound clarity. The pathways, the connections. I can guide the terraforming process with precision. Donald nodded, hope flickering in his eyes. Then let's do this. Vera, are the stabilizers ready? Vera held up a hypo spray filled with a shimmering, iridescent liquid. As ready as they'll ever be. Initiating gravitational stabilization sequence, Donald announced, his fingers flying across the controls. The asteroid shuddered as its propulsion system roared to life. Carefully timed energy pulses radiated outward, interacting with the gravitational waves rippling through the system. On the holographic display, the chaotic swirls of energy began to smooth out, forming more stable patterns. "It's working," Zira called out, her tentacles waving excitedly. "The gravitational anomalies are decreasing." But their victory was short-lived. Alarms blared as power fluctuations cascaded through the base. The lights flickered, and several consoles sparked ominously. "We're overloading the systems," Donald warned, his voice tight with tension. "We can't maintain this level of output for long." As the coalition raced against time, the Kzinti delegation, led by the imposing Admiral Kror, entered the control room. His yellow eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. "We were promised a demonstration," he growled, his claws flexing. "Instead, we find chaos and desperation." High Counselor Mira stepped forward, her posture straight and her voice calm despite the crisis unfolding around them. "Admiral Kror, you've arrived at a pivotal moment. What you see before you is not chaos, but the birth of a new era of cooperation and scientific advancement." As Mira engaged the Kzinti delegation, Donald and Vera worked frantically to maintain control over the terraforming process and stabilize the star system. Lyra's holographic form pulsed with energy, her consciousness stretching across the asteroid systems and out to the transforming moon. The coalition stood at a crossroads, their actions in the next few moments poised to shape the future of not just this star system, but potentially the entire galaxy. The hum of the overworked systems, the tense voices of the negotiators, and the steady beep of warning alarms created a symphony of urgency, underscoring the weight of the decisions that lay before them. The weight of their decisions hung heavy in the air, palpable as the tension between the diverse species gathered in the control room. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the asteroid, more powerful than any before. The holographic displays flickered and distorted, and Lyra's spectral form wavered dangerously. "No!" Donald cried out, his fingers flying across the controls. "We're losing her." The energy pulses from the asteroid's propulsion system, meant to stabilize the gravitational anomalies, were having an unexpected effect on Lyra's partially separated consciousness. Her holographic image flickered rapidly, its edges blurring and shifting. "The integration is breaking down," Vera reported, her eyes darting between Lyra's physical form and the erratic readings on her medical scanner. "If we don't do something quickly, we'll lose control of the terraforming process entirely." Donald's mind raced, calculating possibilities and potential outcomes at lightning speed. He looked up, his expression a mix of willpower and fear. "We need to integrate Lyra more fully with the asteroid systems," he announced. "Use her hybrid physiology as a living interface between the ancient technology and our own." Vera's head snapped up, her eyes wide with alarm. "Donald, that's incredibly dangerous. We have no idea how such deep integration might affect her physiology or her consciousness." "We don't have a choice," Donald insisted, already moving to prepare the necessary equipment. "It's our only chance to stabilize the system and complete the terraforming process." As they debated, Admiral Kror stepped forward, his massive form looming over the control consoles. "Enough of these delays," he growled, baring his fangs. "We came here for a demonstration of power, not to watch you scramble to maintain control. Give us access to the terraforming technology now, or we will take it by force." Captain Khazar bristled at the threat, his own claws flexing instinctively. He found himself torn between his loyalty to the coalition and the expectations of his own species. High Counselor Mira, ever the diplomat, stepped between the two Kzinti. "Admiral Kror, I understand your frustration, but I assure you what you're witnessing is far more valuable than a simple demonstration. You're seeing the birth of a new era of cooperation and scientific advancement." She paused, her mind working quickly to find a compromise. "I propose this. Allow us to proceed with our efforts to stabilize the system, and in exchange we'll permit a small team of your scientists to observe the process directly. Your expertise could prove invaluable in this critical moment." Admiral Kror's eyes narrowed as he considered the offer. After a tense moment, he nodded curtly. Agreed. But know this. If we sense any deception, we will not hesitate to act. As the Kzinti delegation moved to dispatch their scientists, Commander James received an urgent communication. Her face paled as she listened to the message. The gravitational disturbances have begun to affect the orbit of the inhabited planet, she announced, her voice tight with concern. The Galactic Alliance is giving us an ultimatum. Stabilize the system within 24 hours, or they'll intervene with military force. The news sent a ripple of urgency through the control room. Donald turned to Vera, his eyes pleading. We have to do this now. It's our only chance. Vera hesitated for a moment longer, then nodded reluctantly. All right, but we do this carefully, monitoring every step of the way. They sprang into action, preparing Lyra's physical body for the integration process. Vera used a combination of Pac-led biological technology and human medical equipment to create a series of biomechanical interfaces. As they worked, Donald explained the process to the others. We're going to connect Lyra directly to the asteroid's central computer core. Her consciousness will merge more fully with the ancient systems, allowing for more precise control over the terraforming process and hopefully stabilizing the gravitational anomalies. The procedure was delicate and fraught with risk. As the biomechanical interfaces were connected one by one, Lyra's body tensed and relaxed in waves. Her holographic form flickered and pulsed, growing stronger and more defined with each passing moment. Finally, the last connection was made. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a surge of energy that made the lights in the control room flare, Lyra's holographic form solidified completely. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. I see it all, she said, her voice resonating with newfound power and clarity. The pathways, the connections. I understand now. The effect on the terraforming process was immediate and dramatic. On the holographic displays, they watched as new landmasses formed on the moon's surface at an unprecedented rate. The atmosphere thickened visibly, swirling patterns of weather systems beginning to take shape. Lyra, now in full control of the asteroid systems, began to emit carefully calibrated energy pulses. These pulses radiated out through the star system, interacting with the gravitational anomalies and slowly but surely counteracting their effects. It's working, Zira announced, her tentacles waving excitedly as she monitored the gravitational readings. The system is beginning to stabilize. But their elation was short-lived. Vera's medical scanner began to emit a series of urgent beeps. Lyra's body is under immense strain, she reported, her voice tight with worry. Her cellular structure is starting to break down under the pressure of the integration. Vera moved quickly, administering a constant stream of genetic stabilizers to Lyra's physical form. The coalition watched anxiously as Lyra's features began to shift, her body adapting to its deepening connection with the ancient technology. As they worked to maintain Lyra's stability, a new alert sounded from the communication array. Commander James frowned as she examined the incoming signal. We're picking up radio transmissions from the inhabited planet, she announced. It seems the pre-spaceflight civilization has noticed the strange phenomena in their sky. They're broadcasting messages, a mix of fear and curiosity. The revelation sparked an immediate debate among the coalition leaders. High Counselor Mira argued passionately for non-intervention, insisting that they must preserve the natural development of the civilization. Captain Khazar, seeing an opportunity, proposed using the terraforming device to subtly guide the planet's development. As the debate raged on, the Kzinti scientists working alongside the coalition made a startling discovery. One of them, his fur standing on end with excitement, called out to Admiral Cror. Sir, we found something in the ancient databanks, the scientist reported. There's evidence that the civilization that created this terraforming device visited our homeworld in the distant past. They may have influenced our very evolution. The news sent shock waves through the Kzinti delegation. Admiral Cror's expression shifted from skepticism to wonder, then to a calculating interest that made Commander James uneasy. As the 24-hour deadline from the Galactic Alliance drew nearer, Lyra's efforts began to show clear results. The gravitational anomalies were subsiding, the orbits of the planets slowly stabilizing. The moon's transformation was nearing completion, with the first signs of a sustainable ecosystem emerging on its surface. Victory seemed within reach, but just as the coalition began to breathe a collective sigh of relief, a new alert blared through the control room. Lyra's holographic form tensed, her eyes widening with alarm. "We have incoming," she announced, her voice echoing with the power of the asteroid's sensors. "A fleet of ships has just entered the system. Their technology, it's unlike anything in our databases." The coalition leaders rushed to the tactical displays, watching as a swarm of sleek, unfamiliar vessels appeared at the edge of the system. Commander James's face paled as she realized the implications. "It's a new species," she breathed, "one we've never encountered before, and they're heading straight for us." As the unknown fleet drew closer, the coalition found itself facing an entirely new challenge. With the star system still in a precarious state, Lyra's integration not yet complete, and tensions high among the assembled species, they now had to prepare for a potential first contact situation with an advanced and unknown civilization. The control room erupted into a flurry of activity as they prepared to face this unexpected development. The fate of multiple species, including the newly discovered civilization, hung in the balance. As the unknown ships drew ever closer, the coalition steeled themselves for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their next actions could shape the future of the galaxy itself. The unknown fleet's approach sent ripples of tension through the control room. As the coalition braced for potential conflict, Lyra's integration with the asteroid systems reached a critical juncture. Her holographic form pulsed with newfound energy, her consciousness expanding to encompass every aspect of the ancient technology. "I've stabilized the gravitational anomalies," Lyra announced, her voice resonating with power. "The star system is returning to equilibrium." The relief in the room was palpable, but short-lived. Donald's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "Lyra, can you use the terraforming technology to transform the asteroid's interior?" Vera shot him a concerned look. "Donald, we don't know how that level of manipulation will affect her. It's our best option for creating a secure location to deal with our new visitors," Donald argued. He turned to the coalition leaders. "We could create a habitable zone inside the asteroid, a neutral ground for negotiations." High Counselor Mira frowned. "The risks are considerable. We don't know the intentions of this new species." "Precisely why we need a controlled environment," Captain Kazar interjected, his tail twitching with excitement. "It's an opportunity to showcase our capabilities." Commander James stepped forward, her voice calm but authoritative. "We proceed with caution. Donald, work with Lyra on the interior transformation. Vera, focus on stabilizing Lyra's condition. The rest of us will prepare for first contact." As the coalition sprang into action, the unknown fleet initiated communication. A deep, resonant voice filled the control room. "Greetings, sentient beings. We are the Zorax, explorers and peacekeepers from the Andromeda Galaxy. We come with urgent concern regarding your use of the ancient terraforming technology." The revelation sent shockwaves through the coalition. Admiral Cror bristled, his claws flexing instinctively. "How dare they presume to interfere with our affairs?" High Counselor Mira raised a hand to quiet him. "We must hear them out. Their knowledge could be invaluable." She stepped forward to address the Zorax. "We welcome your wisdom, friends. Please send a delegation to our location. We have much to discuss." As preparations for the Zorax arrival began, Lyra focused her consciousness on reshaping the asteroid's interior. Vast chambers materialized, filled with breathable atmosphere and rudimentary ecosystems. The strain of the process was evident in her physical form, which began to shift and change, taking on characteristics of the various coalition species. Vera worked tirelessly, administering a new cocktail of genetic stabilizers to support Lyra's rapidly evolving physiology. "Donald, look at this," she called out, gesturing to her scanner. "Her genetic structure is adapting to interface with the ancient technology. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Donald leaned in, his eyes widening as he processed the implications. This could be the key to unlocking the full potential of the terraforming device. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Vera, I've discovered something. The device has a secondary function capable of rewriting genetic code on a massive scale. Vera's tentacles curled in surprise. That's incredible and terrifying. The ethical implications alone. I know, Donald interrupted, but think of the possibilities. We could solve the Packled's genetic crisis, maybe even... Their conversation was cut short as the Zorix delegation arrived. Ambassador Zelna, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin, led the group into the newly formed central chamber. Her multifaceted eyes took in the transformed interior with evident surprise. "Impressive," she remarked, her voice tinged with caution. "But I must warn you, we have encountered similar devices before. The consequences were catastrophic." As the ambassador began to elaborate, a sudden tremor shook the asteroid. The artificial gravity fluctuated, sending everyone floating momentarily. Lyra's holographic form flickered and distorted. "We're losing power," Donald shouted, pushing off a wall to reach the nearest control panel. "Lyra's connection to the systems is destabilizing." Chaos erupted as coalition members and Zorax alike struggled to regain their footing. Vera fought her way to Lyra's physical form, her medical equipment floating around her. "Her vital signs are erratic. We need to re-establish the connection now." Donald nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. "Rerouting emergency power to the central core. Vera, prepare for reintegration on my mark." As they worked frantically to restore stability, Admiral Cror cornered Captain Sar in a secluded corner of the chamber. "This is our chance," he hissed. "While they're distracted, we can secure the genetic rewriting technology for ourselves. Think of what it could mean for our people." Captain Zar hesitated, torn between his loyalty to the coalition and the potential advantages for his species. Before he could respond, a new alert blared through the chamber. Commander James's voice cut through the chaos. "We're detecting a launch from the pre-spaceflight planet. They've sent up a primitive probe. Our activities haven't gone unnoticed." The revelation added a new layer of urgency to their predicament. As Donald and Vera struggled to reconnect Lyra to the asteroid systems, the coalition leaders found themselves facing a critical juncture. The decisions they made in the next few moments would shape not only their own futures, but potentially the evolution of an entire civilization. Ambassador Zelna stepped forward, her expression grave. "It seems we have much to discuss, and little time to do so. Perhaps it's time we shared what we know about these ancient devices and their creators." The coalition members exchanged glances, each weighing the potential risks and benefits of full disclosure. As they prepared to delve into negotiations that could alter the course of galactic history, the fate of multiple species hung in the balance. As they prepared to delve into negotiations that could alter the course of galactic history, the fate of multiple species hung in the balance. Suddenly, Lyra's holographic form stabilized, her eyes blazing with newfound clarity. "I've re-established connection with the central computer core," she announced, her voice resonating with power. The artificial gravity throughout the base normalized, and critical systems came back online one by one. Ambassador Zelna's multifaceted eyes widened, reflecting the impressed murmurs of her delegation. "Remarkable," she said, her iridescent skin shimmering as she turned to face the coalition leaders. "Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment. Your work with this technology shows potential." Donald stepped forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "Ambassador, coalition members, I believe we have an unprecedented opportunity before us." He glanced at Vera, who nodded encouragingly. The device's genetic manipulation capabilities, combined with Lyra's unique hybrid physiology, could be the key to solving the Packled's genetic crisis. A ripple of excitement passed through the Packled contingent, their typically placid faces animated with hope. High Counselor Mira frowned, her tentacles curling with concern. "The ethical implications of such a treatment are staggering, Donald. We must proceed with utmost caution." Vera moved to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "I've already begun developing a protocol for controlled experiments," she explained, pulling up a series of complex genetic models. "Using small samples of Packled genetic material, we can test the feasibility and safety of the treatment before considering full-scale implementation." As the coalition members crowded around the display, Captain Czar noticed the growing unease among his Sinti warriors. Their tails twitched nervously, eyes darting between the assembled aliens. He stepped forward, his voice carrying over the murmur of discussion. While we explore this genetic solution, we must not neglect our defenses, Khazar declared. I propose integrating Zinti combat techniques with the asteroid systems, a hybrid defense grid combining the best of both technologies. Admiral Kror nodded approvingly, some of the tension leaving his muscular frame. The proposal seemed to placate the Zinti delegation, at least for the moment. Ambassador Zelna cleared her throat, drawing attention back to the Zorax. In light of these developments, we feel compelled to share our knowledge of the ancient civilization that created this device. Her voice took on a grave tone. We have encountered similar technology on other worlds, some with catastrophic results. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander James stepped forward, her expression somber. We appreciate your candor, Ambassador. This information changes everything. Before anyone could respond, an alert chimed from the long-range sensor station. A young ensign's voice rang out. Commander, the probe launched from the pre-spaceflight planet has begun transmitting data back to its homeworld. The news sent a fresh wave of tension through the room. High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed in agitation. This complicates matters significantly. We may have inadvertently accelerated their technological development. Recognizing the need for unity in the face of mounting challenges, Mira raised her voice to address the assembled coalition. I propose the formation of a joint scientific committee with representatives from all our species, including the Zorax. This committee will study the terraforming technology and develop guidelines for its ethical use. The proposal met with nods of approval from most factions, each seeing it as a way to protect their interests while working towards a common goal. As discussions continued, Donald and Vera huddled over their workstation, engrossed in their genetic research. Vera's eyes widened as she analyzed the latest results. Donald, look at this, she whispered urgently. We've successfully created a small-scale model of a genetically modified Packlet embryo. The infertility markers are completely absent. The news spread quickly, igniting a fresh round of debate. The Packlet representatives pushed for immediate implementation of the treatment, while others urged caution. Captain Khazar's eyes gleamed as he considered the military applications of such technology. Amidst the growing tension, Lyra's holographic form shimmered, her features morphing to reflect a mix of the assembled species. I can interface directly with genetic material now, she announced, her voice tinged with awe and uncertainty. I can manipulate DNA sequences with precision. The revelation sent shockwaves through the coalition. The full potential of Lyra's evolving powers began to dawn on them, bringing both excitement and alarm. As the factions argued over the next course of action, a new alert blared through the chamber. Commander James rushed to the sensor station, her face paling as she read the incoming data. We have multiple contacts approaching at high speed, she announced, her voice cutting through the din. Origin unknown, but they're on an intercept course. The news silenced all debate. Coalition members exchanged worried glances, suddenly aware of the precarious nature of their position. The ethical dilemmas and scientific breakthroughs that had seemed so pressing moments ago now took a back seat to the potential threat looming on the horizon. Admiral Kror's voice rumbled through the chamber. We must prepare for a possible confrontation. All ships, battle stations. As the coalition scrambled to respond to this new threat, the weight of their uncommitment debates hung heavy in the air. The fate of the Pack-led species, the ethical use of the terraforming technology, and the potential consequences of their actions on the pre-space flight civilization all paled in comparison to the immediate danger approaching. The asteroid base came alive with activity as defense systems powered up and ships prepared for launch. In the midst of the controlled chaos, Donald and Vera exchanged a determined look. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew that the key to their survival might well lie in the very technology they had been debating. As the unknown fleet drew closer, the coalition stood at a crossroads. Their choices in the coming moments would not only determine their own fate, but potentially reshape the future of the galaxy itself. The Coalition's moment of unity was short-lived as alarms blared throughout the asteroid base. Commander James's voice cut through the chaos, her tone urgent but controlled. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. All personnel to battle stations. The chamber erupted into a flurry of activity. Donald and Vera exchanged a quick glance before springing into action. Donald rushed to the nearest console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. Captain Xar, he called out, we need to integrate the new hybrid defense grid with the asteroid systems. It's our best chance against whatever's coming. The Xinti captain nodded, his tail twitching with anticipation. Agreed. My warriors are ready to defend this base with their lives. As they worked, Lyra's holographic form shimmered into focus beside them. Her eyes, now a swirling mix of colors representing the various species present, scanned the incoming data streams. I've detected the approaching fleet, she announced, her voice resonating with newfound power. They appear to be of unknown origin, but their energy signatures suggest advanced technology. High Counselor Mira slithered forward, her tentacles curling with concern. We must put aside our differences and face this threat together. I propose a temporary alliance between all factions present, including the Zorax. Ambassador Zelna's multifaceted eyes glimmered as she considered the proposal. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. The Zorax agree. We will share our defensive technology with the Coalition. The potential danger posed by these newcomers outweighs our previous reservations. As the various species scrambled to prepare their defenses, Vera continued her work on stabilizing Lyra's condition. She manipulated a series of complex genetic models on her display, her brow furrowed in concentration. Donald, she called out, I've made a breakthrough. Lyra's hybrid physiology might be the key to safely interfacing with the terraforming device. I'm developing a prototype that could allow others to connect without the same risks. Donald's eyes widened at the implications. That could be a game changer, Vera. Keep working on it. We may need every advantage we can get. Captain Khazar's voice boomed across the chamber as he organized the Joint Defense Force. Xinti warriors stood shoulder to shoulder with human soldiers and Packlet security personnel, their differences temporarily set aside in the face of a common enemy. We will drill together, Khazar announced. Each species brings unique strengths to our combined defense. We must learn to work as one if we hope to repel this threat. As the defense force began their drills, Donald huddled with the Zorax scientists, outlining his plan to use the terraforming device as a defensive measure. If we can create a localized spatial distortion around the base, he explained, we could both shield ourselves from attack and conceal our activities from the pre-spaceflight civilization on the nearby planet. The Zorax scientists chittered excitedly, their iridescent skin shimmering as they discussed the possibilities. Ambassador Zelna stepped forward, her voice filled with cautious optimism. This plan has merit, but it will put tremendous strain on Lyra's abilities. Are we certain she can handle the load? Before Donald could respond, Lyra's holographic form materialized beside them. I am prepared to do whatever is necessary to protect this base and its inhabitants, she stated, her voice firm with determination. As the Coalition raced against time to implement their defensive strategies, Vera's team encountered an unexpected complication. The genetic treatment prototype for the Packlets began showing signs of instability, its effects cascading through the test samples with alarming speed. We need to recalibrate the entire sequence, Vera muttered, her fingers dancing across her console. The risk of uncontrolled mutations is too high. The asteroid base's early warning systems suddenly flared to life, bathing the chamber in pulsing red light. Commander James's voice crackled over the intercom. The unknown fleet has entered the outer perimeter of our star system. All non-essential personnel, evacuate to secure areas immediately. As the base's corridors filled with the sound of running feet and shouted orders, Lyra's physical form began to glow with ethereal energy. Her consciousness, now deeply intertwined with the asteroid's core systems, reached out to manipulate the very fabric of space around them. The Coalition watched in awe as a shimmering distortion began to form around the asteroid, warping the starfield beyond. Yet even as this defensive measure took shape, new complications arose. Commander, a young ensign called out, his voice tight with tension. We're detecting increased signal activity from the pre-spaceflight planet. Their transmissions are becoming more complex. They may be on the verge of achieving faster-than-light communication. The news sent a ripple of concern through the assembled leaders. High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed anxiously. This changes everything. If they achieve FTL capability now, in the midst of this crisis. Her words trailed off as the first of the unknown ships came into visual range. The coalition stared at the main view screen, taking in the sleek, predatory lines of the approaching vessels. Scans indicate they are the Vrilksa, Lyra announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. A nomadic race known for salvaging advanced technology from abandoned outposts across the galaxy. Admiral Cror growled, his massive frame tensing for battle. They've come for the terraforming device. We cannot allow it to fall into their hands. As the Vrilksa fleet drew nearer, their presence began to interfere with the delicate gravitational balance Lyra had established. The nearby planet's orbits started to fluctuate, threatening to plunge the entire system into chaos. Donald's fingers flew across his console, making rapid adjustments to compensate for the disruption. "We're losing stability," he shouted. "Lyra, can you maintain the spatial distortion?" Lyra's holographic form flickered, her features contorting with effort. "I'm trying," she managed, her voice strained, "but the Vrilksa's approach is making it difficult to maintain control." The coalition leaders exchanged grim looks as they realized the full scope of the challenges before them. They faced not only the immediate threat of the Vrilksa, but also the potential consequences of their actions on the pre-spaceflight civilization and the stability of the entire star system. As the first Vrilksa ship entered weapons range, Captain Xar turned to the assembled leaders, his eyes gleaming with the light of imminent battle. "We must decide now," he growled. "Do we attempt to communicate with these scavengers, or do we strike first to protect what's ours?" The coalition stood on the precipice of a decision that would shape the future of their species and potentially the entire galaxy. As tensions mounted and systems strained under the pressure, the moment of truth had arrived. Their next move would determine whether this encounter would end in devastating conflict or open the door to a new era of interstellar cooperation. The coalition leaders exchanged tense glances, the weight of their decision palpable in the air. After a moment of silent deliberation, High Counselor Mira's tentacles unfurled in a gesture of agreement. "We must attempt diplomacy," she announced, her voice firm, yet tinged with caution. "Violence should be our last resort." Donald nodded, his fingers already dancing across the holographic interface. "I'll prepare a transmission using our integrated communication systems. We'll broadcast our peaceful intentions and highlight our diversity. It might appeal to their curiosity." As Donald worked, Lyra's form flickered, her ethereal glow dimming slightly. Vera noticed immediately, rushing to the holographic interface to monitor Lyra's vital signs. "Lyra, are you all right?" Vera asked, concern evident in her voice. I'm maintaining the spatial distortion," Lyra responded, her voice strained. "But it's becoming increasingly difficult." Vera quickly adjusted the dosage of genetic stabilizers, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Hold on, Lyra. We're doing everything we can to support you." Donald's voice cut through the tension. "Message prepared. Transmitting now." The coalition held its collective breath as the transmission was sent. Moments later, an unexpected response came through, causing a ripple of surprise among the gathered leaders. They want to negotiate," Commander James announced, her voice filled with disbelief. Captain Khazar's tail twitched suspiciously. "It could be a trap. We must remain vigilant." As the coalition debated the Vrilksa's request to send a delegation, a commotion near the medical bay caught their attention. A group of pack-led individuals stumbled in, their appearances noticeably altered. One pack-led, his eyes gleaming with newfound intelligence, spoke rapidly. We understand now. The equations, the technology, it all makes sense." Vera gasped, realizing the implications. "The genetic treatment, it's affecting them far more rapidly than we anticipated." Captain Khazar growled, signaling to his Khazinti warriors, "Secure them. We can't risk any instability at this crucial moment." As the Kzinti moved to contain the situation, Donald and Vera huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. "We need to relieve some of Lyra's burden," Donald whispered urgently. "The neural interface prototype. Do you think we could adapt it?" Vera nodded, her eyes lighting up with persistence. "It's risky, but it might be our only option. We'll need to connect ourselves directly to the terraforming device." As they began the delicate process of calibrating the neural interface, the Vrilxa delegation's ship docked with the asteroid base. High Counselor Mira and Ambassador Zelna moved to greet them, their postures a mix of caution and diplomatic poise. The airlock hissed open, revealing 3 Vrilxa representatives. Their bodies were a seamless blend of organic matter and advanced cybernetics, moving with an unsettling fluidity. The lead Vrilxa stepped forward, her metallic eyes scanning the coalition representatives. "I am Zara," she announced, her voice carrying a slight electronic undertone. "We come seeking knowledge and mutual benefit." High Counselor Mira's tentacles rippled in a formal greeting. "Welcome, Zara. We are pleased to engage in peaceful dialogue." As they led the Vrilsa delegation to the conference room, Zara's gaze lingered on Lyra's glowing form and the altered Paklets being escorted by Kzinti warriors. Her expression remained unreadable, but her interest was palpable. In the conference room, Zara wasted no time in presenting her proposal. "We offer an exchange," she stated, her cybernetic fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. "Our expertise in cybernetic enhancements and propulsion systems for access to your terraforming technology and genetic advancements." The coalition leaders exchanged uneasy glances. Ambassador Zelna's multifaceted eyes narrowed slightly. "Your offer is intriguing, but we must consider the implications carefully." As the negotiations continued, an urgent message from the sensor array interrupted their discussion. The young ensign's voice crackled over the intercom, filled with a mix of awe and concern. "Sirs, the pre-spaceflight civilization. They've done it. They've achieved rudimentary, faster-than-light communication." The news sent shockwaves through the room. High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed anxiously. "This changes everything. Our policy of non-interference." Zara leaned forward, her cybernetic eyes gleaming with interest. "Perhaps this development could benefit us all. A new species entering the galactic stage. With proper guidance, of course." As the implications of this new development sank in, Donald and Vera completed the final adjustments to the neural interface. They exchanged a nervous glance before connecting themselves to the terraforming device. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A flood of information and sensory input washed over them, threatening to overwhelm their consciousness. Through sheer force of will, they managed to stabilize the connection, feeling the strain on Lyra lessen slightly. "It's working," Vera gasped, her eyes wide with the effort of maintaining the link. "But I don't know how long we can sustain this." As the coalition grappled with these multiple crises, they knew that their decisions in the coming hours would shape not only their own futures, but potentially the entire balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. The fate of multiple species hung in the balance as they navigated the treacherous waters of interstellar diplomacy and technological advancement. The fate of multiple species hung in the balance as they navigated the treacherous waters of interstellar diplomacy and technological innovation. As the negotiations with the Vrilxa delegation continued, Donald and Vera's connection to the terraforming device through the neural interface began to stabilize. The initial flood of sensory input settled into a manageable stream of data, allowing them to effectively share the burden of maintaining the spatial distortion around the asteroid base. Lyra's holographic form flickered, then steadied as the strain on her systems eased. "Thank you," she said, her voice stronger now. "I can feel the difference already." Vera nodded, her eyes still unfocused as she processed the influx of information. "It's incredible. I can sense the entire structure of the base, every system, every connection." Donald's fingers moved across his console with newfound precision. "We're not just maintaining the distortion, we're improving it. Lyra, can you feel the difference?" Lyra's form shimmered as she extended her awareness. "Yes, the field is more stable now, more resistant to outside interference." In the conference room, the atmosphere remained tense as High Counselor Mira, Captain Czar, and Commander James engaged in intense discussions with Zara, the Vrilgza negotiator. The metallic sheen of Zara's cybernetic enhancements caught the light as she leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "We propose a limited exchange," Zara said, her voice carrying that slight electronic undertone. "Our environmental adaptation systems for your terraforming data. Non-military applications only, of course." High Counselor Mira's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. "An intriguing offer, but we must ensure the safety and security of all parties involved." As they hammered out the details of the exchange, a new figure entered the room. Her movements were fluid, a perfect blend of organic grace and cybernetic precision. "I am Dr. Lyra," she announced, her gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders. "I specialize in xenobiology, and I must say, your base holds fascinating subjects of study." Captain Czar's fur bristled slightly. "What exactly are you proposing, Doctor?" Dr. Lyra's cybernetic eyes focused on him. "I've observed your AI construct, Lyra, in the ongoing pack-led genetic modifications. With your permission, I'd like to study these phenomena. In return, I offer my expertise to help stabilize the pack-led treatment." The coalition leaders exchanged glances, a silent debate passing between them. Finally, Commander James spoke. "We'll consider your proposal, Dr. Lyra, but any research would be conducted under strict supervision." As the negotiations progressed, activity in the medical bay reached a fever pitch. The evolved pack-led individuals, their appearances subtly altered, moved with newfound purpose and clarity. One of them, his eyes gleaming with intelligence, approached a control panel and placed his hand on its surface. The panel lit up, responding to his touch in ways it never had before. I can see the pathways," he murmured, his voice filled with wonder. "The connections between systems, the flow of energy. It's all so clear now." Vera, alerted by the commotion, rushed to the medical bay. Her eyes widened as she watched the pack-led interface with the base's systems. "This is unexpected," she breathed, her mind racing with the implications. In response to these developments, Captain Khazar's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. New security protocols are now in effect. Mixed teams of Khazinti warriors and human soldiers will be stationed at all critical areas. Report any unusual activity immediately." As the base adjusted to these new measures, the sensor array lit up with urgent warnings. The young ensign's voice, tinged with excitement and concern, filled the command center. "Sirs, the pre-space flight civilization has launched a new probe. It's more advanced than anything they've sent before. Our cloaking may not be enough to hide us." Donald, still connected to the terraforming device, felt an idea forming in his mind. He could see the star system laid out before him, a complex dance of gravitational forces and celestial bodies. "We might not need to hide," he said slowly. "What if we gave them something else to focus on?" He outlined his plan to create a series of small, habitable asteroids throughout the system. These new worlds could serve as buffer zones, allowing for controlled contact in the future while diverting attention from the Coalition's main base. Lyra's holographic form pulsed with energy as she grasped the concept. "I can do it," she said, her voice resonating with newfound strength. "With the help of the evolved pack-leds, we can manipulate the gravitational fields precisely enough to make this work." As the plan was set into motion, the Coalition watched in awe as new planetoids began to take shape throughout the system. Lyra's consciousness expanded, guiding the intricate dance of matter and energy. The evolved pack-leds worked alongside her, their intuitive understanding of the base's systems proving invaluable. But as the new habitable zones formed, an unsettling realization dawned on the Coalition. The gravitational shifts caused by their actions were affecting the orbits of the system's existing planets. The delicate balance they sought to maintain was now in jeopardy. Lyra's voice, strained once again with effort, cut through the growing tension. "There's more," she said, her holographic form flickering with the intensity of her expanded awareness. "I can see it now. The orbital changes. If we don't act, two of the system's planets will collide within years." The news sent shockwaves through the Coalition. As they grappled with this new crisis, the sensor array lit up once more. The Vrilxa fleet, silent for so long, had begun to move deeper into the system. Captain Czar's growl filled the command center as he initiated defense protocols. Prepare for possible confrontation. All stations, report status. High Counselor Mira and Ambassador Zelna hurried to re-establish contact with Zara and the Vrilxa delegation, hoping to understand their intentions before it was too late. The Coalition now faced a convergence of crises: the potential planetary collision, the advancing pre-space flight civilization, the Vrilxa fleet's movement, and the ongoing challenge of the evolving Pac-led population. As alarms blared and screens flickered with urgent data, the leaders of the Coalition steeled themselves for the difficult decisions that lay ahead. The fate of the entire star system hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine the course of multiple civilizations. The Coalition's actions now would echo through the annals of galactic history, for better or for worse. The Coalition's leaders stood frozen for a moment, the weight of their multiple crises bearing down upon them. Then, with a determined nod, Donald broke the silence. "I have an idea," he said, his voice steady despite the strain evident on his face. "We can use the terraforming device to adjust the orbits of the colliding planets." Without waiting for a response, Donald closed his eyes, focusing intently on his neural interface with the device. His fingers danced across the console, initiating a series of carefully calculated energy pulses. The room hummed with power as the terraforming technology responded to his commands. Vera watched the main display, her eyes widening as she saw the projected orbits of the two planets begin to shift. "It's working," she breathed, "but the precision required." "Donald, can you maintain this?" Donald's brow furrowed with concentration. "I can, but it's going to take time. We'll need to make constant adjustments to avoid destabilizing the entire system." As Donald worked, Lyra's holographic form flickered with increased activity. Her voice, tinged with urgency, cut through the tense atmosphere. "I'm detecting anomalies in the gravitational field. The Vrilxa fleet, they're deploying something." Captain Czar growled, his fur jam-packed. "Sensors confirm. Small objects, likely probes, spreading throughout the system. They're using our distraction to gather intelligence." The captain's claws tapped rapidly on his command console. "Assemble a joint task force. Kazini warriors and human operatives. We need to intercept and disable those probes before they compromise our position." As the task force mobilized, activity in the medical bay caught Vera's attention. The evolved Pac-lids were moving with newfound purpose, their eyes gleaming with intelligence. One of them, a male who had taken the name Zorn, approached a complex control panel. Zorn's fingers moved across the panel with surprising dexterity. "I can see the patterns," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The ancient protocols. They're speaking to me." Vera rushed to his side, her scientific curiosity piqued. "What do you mean, Zorn? What are you seeing?" Before Zorn could respond, the panel beneath his hands lit up with a previously dormant subroutine. The room filled with a low hum as a shimmering portal began to form in the air. "A wormhole," Vera gasped, her mind racing with the implications. "Zorn, you've unlocked a matter transportation system." As the Coalition grappled with this new development, Dr. Alara's voice came over the intercom. "I've made a breakthrough in my analysis of Lyra's physiology," she announced, her tone a mix of excitement and awe. "Her genetic structure isn't just a hybrid. It's a dynamic, self-evolving system. She's adapting in real time to the energies around her." Lyra's holographic form pulsed at this revelation, her expression a mix of surprise and concern. I never knew. What does this mean for me? For us?" Before anyone could ponder the implications, alarms blared throughout the base. The young ensign's voice, filled with panic, came over the speakers. "Massive seismic activity detected on the pre-space flight civilization's planet. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. It's chaos down there." High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed with agitation. "The gravitational shifts from our orbital adjustments must have triggered this. We need to make a decision. Do we intervene?" Captain Khazar's fur stood on end. "Intervene? That would violate every protocol we have." Mira's eyes narrowed, her voice filled with dedication. "We may not have a choice. Millions of lives are at stake. I propose we use the wormhole technology Zorn discovered. We could evacuate a portion of their population to one of our new habitable planetoids." The command center erupted into heated debate. Arguments for and against intervention flew back and forth. The ethical implications weighed against the potential loss of life. Amidst the chaos, sensors blared another warning. The Vrilxa fleet was on the move, their ships forming a blockade around the star system. Captain Czar snarled, his tactical mind already formulating strategies. "They're cutting off our escape routes. We need to prepare for possible conflict. All personnel, battle stations." As the coalition forces scrambled to their positions, Vera made her way to the research lab, her mind still processing the implications of Zorn's discovery. She ran another analysis on the Packlet genetic modifications, hoping to understand the source of their newfound abilities. Her eyes widened as the results appeared on her screen. "This can't be," she muttered, double-checking her findings. "There's a sequence here. It matches fragments from the ancient civilization's genetic code in the Terraforming database." Before she could report her discovery, a massive energy surge rocked the base. Alarms blared as sensors detected an unprecedented power spike emanating from the pre-spaceflight civilization's planet. Donald's voice, strained with effort, came over the intercom. "Something's activated down there. Some kind of ancient technology. It's interfering with our orbital adjustments." As the coalition grappled with this new threat, they found themselves at a crossroads. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, while an aggressive alien fleet loomed at their doorstep. The secrets of their own existence, tied to ancient technologies and genetic mysteries, threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew. With time running out and options dwindling, the coalition leaders knew that their next decision would shape the course of galactic history. The question remained, would they rise to the challenge or be consumed by the very forces they sought to control? Control? The coalition's leaders knew their next move would be crucial. As they debated their options, Donald's voice cut through the tension, his tone steady despite the strain evident in his features. "The orbital adjustments are working," he announced, his fingers dancing across the terraforming device's interface. "The two planets are stabilizing. We've averted the immediate collision threat." A collective sigh of relief swept through the command center, but it was short-lived. The young ensign's voice crackled over the intercom, panic evident in his tone. "Massive seismic activity detected on the pre-spaceflight civilization's planet. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. It's chaos down there." High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed with renewed agitation. "The gravitational shifts from our adjustments must have triggered this. We need to act now." Her earlier proposal to evacuate a portion of the pre-spaceflight civilization gained immediate traction. Captain Kazar, despite his initial reservations, nodded grimly. "Agreed. We can't stand by and watch millions perish." Vera rushed to the medical bay, where Zorn stood before the shimmering portal he had inadvertently created. "Zorn, we need to stabilize and expand this wormhole. Can you do it?" The evolved Packled's eyes gleamed with newfound intelligence. "Yeah, I see the patterns. I can make it work." As Zorn worked to strengthen the wormhole, Captain Sar assembled a team to investigate the massive energy surge on the pre-spaceflight civilization's planet. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," he growled, his fur standing on end. "This could be related to the ancient technology we've encountered before." The captain led his team through the stabilized wormhole, emerging on the chaotic surface of the alien world. Amidst the devastation, they discovered an artifact buried beneath the ground, its design eerily similar to the terraforming device. As they approached, the artifact pulsed with energy, seemingly awakening in response to the recent gravitational disturbances. Back on the base, Lyra's holographic form flickered with intense activity. Her voice, filled with urgency, rang out. "The Vrilsa fleet, their formation isn't just a blockade. They're positioning themselves at specific points throughout the system." Donald's eyes widened as he processed the information. "They're creating an energy collection grid. They're trying to harness the star system's gravitational energy for themselves. As the evacuation efforts ramped up, Dr. Lyra and Vera made a breakthrough in their analysis of Lyra's unique physiology. Her adaptive abilities, Dr. Lyra explained, excitement evident in her voice, they're directly linked to the terraforming device's core functions. This connection, it could allow her to interface with other ancient artifacts. Vera's mind raced with the implications, including the one Captain Czar just discovered. Before they could explore this further, alarms blared throughout the base. The wormhole used for evacuation began to destabilize, its edges flickering ominously. Donald and Vera rushed to the portal, their hands flying over the controls. "We need more power," Donald shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. "Divert energy from non-essential systems. We can't let it collapse with refugees in transit." As they fought to maintain the wormhole's stability, Captain Czar's voice crackled over the comm. "Coalition base, do you read? We've disabled several Vrilsa probes, but they've noticed. Multiple ships have broken formation and are moving to intercept." The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The coalition forces found themselves stretched thin, trying to maintain the evacuation efforts while preparing for a possible confrontation with the Vrilsa fleet. Amidst the chaos, a group of evacuees caught Vera's attention. They moved with purpose towards the ancient artifact, their hands outstretched as if drawn by an unseen force. To her astonishment, the artifact responded to their presence, its surface glowing with renewed energy. "Incredible," she breathed, quickly scanning their genetic makeup. Her eyes widened as the results appeared on her screen. "There's a match, similar to what we found in the modified Pakled DNA. These people share a genetic link with the creators of the terraforming device." As the coalition grappled with this new development, Lyra's holographic form solidified, her expression one of fierce dedication. "I have a plan," she announced, her voice resonating with newfound strength. "But it's risky." The coalition leaders gathered around her, their faces a mix of hope and apprehension. Lyra outlined her proposal to use her unique connection to the terraforming technology to interface directly with the ancient artifact on the pre-spaceflight civilization's planet. By linking the two devices, she believed she could create a counter-resonance to disrupt the Vrilx's energy collection grid. As the coalition debated the merits and risks of Lyra's plan, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Another wave of seismic activity rocked the pre-spaceflight civilization's planet, a stark reminder of the time pressure they faced. Donald stepped forward, his mind focused with purpose. "I can modify the wormhole technology to create a targeted portal. We can send Lyra directly to the artifact's location." Vera nodded, already preparing a final round of genetic stabilizers. "I'll do what I can to protect her physiology from the strain of interfacing with both devices." As preparations for Lyra's mission began in earnest, the coalition forces braced themselves for the challenges ahead. The fate of multiple species and the entire star system hung in the balance, hinging on the success of their daring plan. The modified wormhole hummed with energy, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Lyra stood before it, her holographic form seeming more solid than ever. She turned to face the coalition leaders, her expression a mixture of willpower and uncertainty. "I'm ready now," she said, her voice steady despite the enormity of the task ahead. As she stepped towards the portal, the coalition held its collective breath, knowing that the next few moments could change the course of galactic history. History. The air crackled with tension as Lyra stepped forward, her holographic form shimmering with newfound solidity. Donald's hands flew over the controls, making final adjustments to the wormhole technology. "Portal stability at 97%, he announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Lyra, you're clear to proceed." Vera approached Lyra, a small case of genetic stabilizers in hand. "Remember, if you feel any cellular instability, use these immediately. We can't risk losing you." Lyra nodded, her eyes fixed on the rippling surface of the portal. "I understand. Let's do this." As Lyra prepared to step through, Zorn suddenly spoke up. "I'm coming with you," he said, his evolved intellect gleaming in his eyes. "My understanding of the ancient technology could be crucial." Captain Kazar growled in agreement. "Vera, you go too. We need your expertise to monitor Lyra's condition. The trio approached the portal, its mercury-like surface humming with energy. With a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward, Vera and Zorn close behind. In an instant, they were engulfed by the shimmering light. They emerged on the planet's surface, immediately assaulted by the chaos around them. The ground shook violently beneath their feet, fissures spreading like spiderwebs across the landscape. In the distance, a volcano belched ash and fire into the sky, casting an apocalyptic pall over the scene. "Wanatsana, this way," Vera shouted over the rumbling earth, pointing towards a partially exposed structure jutting from the ground. Its sleek alien design marked it clearly as the ancient artifact they sought. The team picked their way across the treacherous terrain, narrowly avoiding sudden chasms and falling debris. Zorn's enhanced reflexes proved invaluable as he helped the others navigate the unstable ground. As they approached the artifact, Lyra felt a pull, an inexorable draw towards the ancient device. Without hesitation, she reached out and placed her hand on its smooth surface. The effect was instantaneous. Energy coursed through Lyra's body, causing her holographic form to flicker and shift. Her skin began to emit a soft, pulsating glow, and her features subtly changed, becoming more angular, more alien. Vera quickly scanned Lyra with her medical tricorder, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Cellular degradation detected," she muttered, reaching for a stabilizer. "Lyra, hold still." As Vera administered the genetic stabilizer, Zorn examined the artifact closely. The energy patterns, they're similar to the terraforming device, but far more complex, he observed, his fingers tracing the intricate designs on its surface. Back on the asteroid base, Captain Zar barked orders as the Vrilga ships closed in. "Deploy Kzinti human squadrons to sectors 4 and 7, he growled. "Use the Paklid's predictive algorithms to anticipate their moves." The space around the asteroid erupted into a furious battle. Coalition fighters weaving between the larger Vrilsa vessels, their tactics constantly shifting thanks to the Paklid's enhanced cognitive abilities. Donald, still connected to the terraforming device, focused on maintaining the wormhole's stability while channeling energy to support Lyra's efforts. Sweat beaded on his brow as he juggled the complex energy flows. On the planet's surface, Lyra's connection to the artifact deepened. Her eyes, now glowing with an inner light, widened as she accessed previously dormant systems within the device. "It's working," she said, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "I can feel the energy grid the Vrilsa created. I'm generating a counter-resonance." As Lyra spoke, pulses of energy began to emanate from the artifact, rippling outward into space. The Vrilsa ships closest to the planet began to falter, their formations breaking as they struggled against the disruptive energy. However, the activation of the artifact had unintended consequences. The ground beneath their feet lurched violently, and in the distance, the volcano's eruption intensified. Geysers of superheated gas burst from newly formed fissures, turning the air acrid and dangerous. Zorn, his mind racing with newfound understanding, quickly moved to a control panel on the artifact. "The energy output is too intense," he explained, his fingers dancing over the alien interface. "I can modify it, stabilize the geological activity while maintaining the counter-resonance." As Zorn worked, Vera continued to monitor Lyra closely, administering stabilizers as needed. Lyra's form continued to change, her body adapting to process the vast influx of information from the artifact. Back on the asteroid, High Counselor Mira made a difficult decision. "Accelerate the evacuation," she ordered, her tentacles writhing with tension. "Use all available resources. We need to get as many of the pre-spaceflight civilization off that planet as possible." The wormhole technology, already strained, began to show signs of instability under the increased load. Donald, recognizing the danger, initiated an emergency protocol, diverting even more energy from the terraforming device to reinforce the wormhole's structure. On the planet, Lyra's control over the artifact grew stronger. The counter-resonance intensified, more effectively neutralizing the Vrilxa's energy collection efforts. In space, the alien fleet systems began to fail catastrophically, forcing them to retreat to the outer edges of the star system. With the immediate threat neutralized, the coalition focused on stabilizing the planet and completing the evacuation. Zorn's modifications to the artifact started to take effect, gradually calming the violent geological disturbances. As the situation began to stabilize, sensors on the asteroid base detected a new energy signature approaching the star system. Captain Kazar's fur stood on end as he studied the readouts. "Unknown signature detected," he announced, his voice grave. "It matches no known species or technology. We may have another player entering the game." The coalition forces, already stretched thin, now faced a new potential threat. As they prepared to confront this latest challenge, the fate of the star system and its inhabitants hung in the balance, with the consequences of their actions rippling out across the galaxy. As the coalition forces braced themselves for this new development, the situation on the planet's surface took an unexpected turn. Lyra's connection to the ancient artifact intensified, her body undergoing further physical changes. Her skin began to emit a soft, pulsating glow that matched the rhythm of the artifact's energy output. Vera, noticing these transformations, quickly reached for a new combination of genetic stabilizers. "Lyra, hold still," Vera said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Your cellular structure is adapting rapidly. I need to administer this new stabilizer to prevent degradation." As Vera worked, Zorn continued his modifications to the artifact. The ground beneath their feet, which had been violently shaking moments ago, began to stabilize. Fissures slowly closed, and the distant volcano's eruption diminished in intensity. "It's working," Zorn announced, his enhanced intellect processing the complex data streams from the artifact. "The geological disturbances are subsiding. We should be able to continue the evacuation more safely now." Back on the asteroid base, Donald's fingers flew over the controls as he redirected energy from the terraforming device to reinforce the wormhole technology. The portal's edges, which had been flickering dangerously, solidified into a stable shimmer. "Wormhole stability increased to 99%, Donald reported, sweat beading on his forehead. "But we're running low on power. The asteroid's defensive systems are affected." Captain Kazar's fur bristled at the news. "Recalibrate all weapons," he growled to his team. "Deploy additional Sinti-human squadrons to the system's outer perimeter. We need to be ready for whatever's coming our way." As the coalition forces scrambled to prepare for the approaching unknown entity, movement on the planet's surface caught Vera's attention. A small group of locals, members of the pre-spaceflight civilization, approached the artifact site. Their eyes were wide with wonder and fear as they took in the pulsing energy and the strange beings gathered around it. High Counselor Mira's voice crackled over the comm system. "We can no longer hide our presence," she said, her voice tinged with resignation. "I'm authorizing limited contact. A diplomatic team is en route to your location." As if on cue, the wormhole pulsed, depositing a diverse group of coalition representatives on the planet's surface. They moved quickly to intercept the approaching locals, their translators working overtime to decipher the pre-spaceflight civilization's language. Suddenly, alarms blared from every communication device. The unknown energy signature had entered the star system. On the asteroid base's main view screen, a massive ship appeared, its design a mind-bending fusion of ancient artifact aesthetics and Vrilsa technology. Before anyone could react, a message broadcast across all frequencies. The language was unlike anything they had encountered before, yet it carried undertones reminiscent of the command protocols used in the ancient technology. Zorn's eyes widened as his enhanced mind began to decode the transmission. "They call themselves the progenitors," he announced, his voice filled with awe. "They claim to be descendants of the civilization that created the terraforming technology." As this revelation spread through the coalition ranks, the terraforming device on the asteroid surged with energy. Donald's hands flew over the controls, trying to contain the sudden power spike. "The device is activating dormant systems," he shouted over the alarms. "It's reconfiguring itself. I'm diverting all available power to containment, but it's not enough." On the planet's surface, Lyra gasped as a flood of new information poured into her mind through her connection with the artifact. Her skin took on a luminescent quality, and her eyes shifted color to match the pulsing energy around her. I understand now, she whispered, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. The true purpose of the terraforming technology, the progenitor's intentions. As she spoke, the ground beneath them shifted. The artifact began to rise, revealing itself as part of a much larger structure. The earth peeled away, exposing more of the ancient technology and forming a natural amphitheater around them. The pre-spaceflight civilization members who had approached earlier watched in stunned silence as their world literally opened up before them. The diplomatic team struggled to maintain order as panic threatened to overtake the group. In orbit, the progenitor's ship took up position, its massive form casting a shadow over the planet below. A wide-spectrum energy field emanated from the vessel, connecting with both the planet-bound artifact and the terraforming device on the asteroid. Visible beams of light stretched between the 3 points, forming a triangular pattern that pulsed with power. Captain Khazar's voice cut through the chaos. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel from the asteroid to the new habitable planetoids," he ordered. "Redeploy our forces to create a protective perimeter around evacuation routes and remaining population centers." As the coalition scrambled to respond to this new development, sensors picked up movement at the edge of the system. The Vrilxa fleet, having recovered from their earlier defeat, began to regroup. Energy readings from their ships indicated they were preparing for possible aggressive action. The coalition now faced a perfect storm of challenges: managing first contact with the pre-spaceflight civilization, preparing for potential engagement with the progenitors, containing the evolving terraforming technology, and remaining vigilant against the regrouping Vrilxa threat. As coalition leaders gathered to address these mounting crises, Lyra's voice echoed through their communication channels, carrying the weight of newfound knowledge. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her words resonating with an ancient power. "The decisions we make now will shape the future of not just this star system, but the entire galaxy." Galaxy. As the coalition forces braced for the arrival of the progenitors, another pressing concern resurfaced, demanding immediate attention. Dr. Lyra, the Vrilxa xenobiologist, approached Donald with urgency in her steps. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and dedication as she spoke, her voice low and intense. "Donald, I believe we have an opportunity here," she said, gesturing toward the massive progenitor ship looming above. "The knowledge we've gained from Lyra's adaptive physiology, combined with this new information from the progenitors, could be the key to solving the Pac-led genetic crisis." Donald's eyes widened as he processed the implications of Dr. Lyra's words. He glanced at the terraforming device, its energy pulsing in sync with the artifact on the planet's surface, and the progenitor ship. "You're right," he said, nodding slowly. "We've been so caught up in these recent events, we almost lost sight of our original mission. Let's work on this together." As Donald and Dr. Lyra huddled over a makeshift workstation, Vera continued to monitor Lyra's transformations. She noticed something remarkable. Lyra's genetic structure had achieved an unprecedented level of stability and adaptability. "Lyra," Vera called out, her voice tinged with awe, "your physiology, it's extraordinary. I think your unique genetic makeup might be the answer we've been searching for. It could benefit not just the Pac-lids, but potentially other species facing similar challenges." Lyra, her skin still shimmering with an otherworldly glow, turned to Vera, her eyes now a swirling kaleidoscope of colors, focused on the geneticist. "I can feel it," Lyra said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "The knowledge, the potential, it's all here, waiting to be unlocked." High Counselor Mira, overhearing this exchange, made a swift decision. Her tentacles writhed with purpose as she activated the coalition-wide communication channel. "Attention all coalition members," she announced. "In light of recent developments, I am calling for an immediate meeting. Representatives from all species, including our newly contacted pre-spaceflight civilization, are to convene at the exposed artifact site." The natural amphitheater formed by the rising artifact quickly filled with a diverse array of beings. The pre-spaceflight civilization members, still wide-eyed with wonder, were guided to their designated area by the diplomatic team. As the meeting commenced, plans for a dedicated genetic research facility on one of the newly habitable planetoids were proposed and swiftly approved. The facility would serve as neutral ground, fostering collaboration between scientists of all species. Meanwhile, Donald and Dr. Lyra made significant progress in their work. Their prototype therapy, incorporating elements of Lyra's adaptive genetics and energy patterns from the terraforming technology, showed promising results in reversing Pakled infertility. Captain Czar, recognizing the strategic importance of this research, barked orders to his security team. "Assemble a mixed security detail," he growled. "Integrate our enhanced Pakled allies into key positions. Their cognitive abilities will be crucial in creating an adaptive defense system for the facility." As preparations for the research facility gained momentum, the massive progenitor ship initiated communication. Their message, a complex blend of ancient and modern linguistic patterns, expressed both interest and caution regarding the genetic research project. "We offer our knowledge," the progenitor message stated, "but heed our warning. Rapid genetic manipulation carries great risks. Our own history stands as a cautionary tale." The coalition leaders absorbed this information, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. As discussions continued, Lyra stepped forward, her form seeming to shimmer between states of matter. "I volunteer," she said, her voice carrying across the amphitheater. "My body can adapt to various environments and energy fields. Use me as a living template for your experiments. Together, we can unlock the secrets of genetic stability and adaptation." A murmur rippled through the gathered representatives. High Counselor Mira's tentacles quivered with a mixture of hope and concern as she considered Lyra's offer. In the days that followed, the first group of Pakled volunteers underwent the experimental genetic therapy. The results exceeded expectations, with significant improvements in fertility and overall genetic stability observed. Zorn, his enhanced mind processing vast amounts of data, developed a method to integrate the genetic therapy process with the terraforming device's energy output. This breakthrough allowed for more precise and efficient genetic modifications, dramatically increasing the success rate of treatments. As word of these developments spread across the star system and beyond, ships from various alien races began arriving, each carrying individuals seeking help for their own genetic issues. The coalition found itself facing a new challenge: managing the influx of arrivals while continuing their vital research. Amidst this flurry of activity, sensors detected unusual patterns emanating from the pre-spaceflight civilization's homeworld. The planet's population, inspired by their recent cosmic encounters, had begun a rapid cultural and technological evolution. Captain Kazar growled as he reviewed the data. "This complicates our non-interference policies," he said, his fur jam-packed with tension. "We need to address this development immediately." As the coalition grappled with these new challenges, the Vrilksa made an unexpected move. Their flagship approached the outer perimeter of the coalition's defenses, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "We propose a temporary alliance," the Vrilksa transmission declared. "We offer our expertise in cybernetic enhancements in exchange for access to your genetic therapy technology." This proposal sent shockwaves through the coalition leadership. As they debated the merits and risks of such an alliance, the star system buzzed with activity. The genetic research facility, now fully operational, worked tirelessly to address the needs of multiple species. Meanwhile, the rapidly advancing pre-spaceflight civilization posed both opportunities and challenges for the coalition's policies. In the heart of this maelstrom of progress and potential conflict, Lyra continued to evolve. Her body, now a conduit for the ancient artifact's energy, served as a bridge between the past and the future. As she underwent a series of controlled genetic modifications, each designed to test treatments for different species, the coalition stood on the brink of a new era in interstellar cooperation and scientific advancement. The star system, once unremarkable, had become a nexus of galactic importance. As more ships arrived and the Vrilksa waited for an answer to their proposal, the coalition leaders knew that their decisions in the coming days would shape the future of countless civilizations across the stars. Galaxy. The coalition's attention quickly shifted to the pressing need for genetic research and treatment. Donald and Dr. Lyra wasted no time in establishing a dedicated laboratory within the newly constructed research facility on one of the habitable planetoids. The lab hummed with activity as they installed advanced genetic sequencing machines and energy modulators derived from the terraforming technology. These modulators should allow us to fine-tune the genetic treatments, Donald explained, gesturing to a sleek pulsing device. We can adjust the energy output to match different species' physiologies. Dr. Lyra nodded, her eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. And with Lyra's adaptive genetics as a template, we have a unique opportunity to develop a comprehensive treatment for multiple species. Lyra stood in the center of the lab, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow. As she prepared for the first series of controlled modifications, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for the unknown. "I'm ready," she said, her voice carrying a hint of nervousness beneath its newfound resonance. The procedure began, and Lyra's body responded in ways that astonished even the seasoned scientists. Her physiology seamlessly incorporated traits from various species. The enhanced strength of the Kzinti, the cognitive prowess of the evolved Packlids, and more. Vera, monitoring the process closely, called out readings with increasing excitement. Her genetic structure is stabilizing these new traits without any signs of rejection or degradation. It's remarkable. As the days passed, Donald and Vera pored over the data from Lyra's transformations. They discovered a common genetic marker across multiple species, one that appeared to be linked to overall genetic stability. This could be the key to developing a universal genetic stabilizer, Donald mused, his fingers flying over a holographic display. If we can isolate and replicate this marker. Meanwhile, Captain Kazar oversaw the implementation of new security measures for the research facility. He prowled through the corridors, inspecting the installation of advanced sensors and force fields. "Integrate these systems with the planetoid's terraformed environment," he growled to a team of technicians. "I want adaptive defense algorithms that can predict and respond to any threat." The evolved Packlid security team members, their enhanced minds processing vast amounts of data, worked tirelessly to create these algorithms. Their efforts resulted in a security system that seemed to pulse with the very life of the planetoid itself. High Counselor Mira called for an interspecies summit to address the growing demand for genetic treatments. Representatives from various races gathered in a newly constructed conference center, their diverse forms filling the expansive chamber with a riot of colors and shapes. "We stand at the threshold of a new era," Mira began, her tentacles weaving patterns of emphasis as she spoke. "The formation of an interspecies genetic council will ensure fair and ethical distribution of these life-changing therapies." As discussions progressed, the Coalition's long-range sensors detected a new influx of ships entering the system. Captain Gazar's fur bristled as he received the report. "A refugee fleet," he announced to the assembled leaders. "They're fleeing some sort of catastrophic event in a distant sector." The arrival of the refugees presented both an opportunity and a challenge. Dr. Alara saw the potential for expanding their genetic database, while Zorn quickly devised plans to repurpose several newly created habitable planetoids as temporary housing. "We can use the terraforming technology to rapidly construct sustainable environments for each species," Zorn explained, his enhanced mind processing the logistics at lightning speed. As the Coalition scrambled to accommodate the refugees, the Vrilsa made their move. A sleek delegation vessel approached the research planetoid, broadcasting a message of alliance. "We offer our cybernetic expertise in exchange for access to your genetic research," the Vrilsa representative stated, its metallic voice carrying a hint of desperation. The Coalition leaders found themselves divided on how to respond. Some saw the potential benefits of such an alliance, while others harbored deep suspicions about the Vrilsa's true motives. Amid this flurry of activity, Donald and Vera's work on the Universal Genetic Stabilizer showed promising results. Initial trials on volunteer subjects from various races yielded improvements in health and genetic stability. However, the rapid progress of their research did not go unnoticed. Long-range sensors picked up an anomaly, a massive, unidentified vessel approaching the star system at alarming speed. "Energy signature off the charts," reported a sensor operator, his voice tight with tension. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." As the Coalition grappled with this new potential threat, Lyra continued to play a central role in their research efforts. Her unique ability to adapt to various genetic modifications made her an invaluable asset, but the toll of constant experimentation was becoming evident. "We need to monitor Lyra's condition more closely," Vera insisted, noting signs of strain in Lyra's physiology. These rapid changes could have unforeseen long-term effects. The coalition now faced a perfect storm of challenges: managing an expanding research program, integrating refugee populations, negotiating with the Vrilksa, and preparing for a possible confrontation with an unknown advanced entity. As leaders gathered to formulate their next moves, the fate of multiple species hung in the balance, with the star system poised on the brink of a new chapter in galactic history. As the coalition leaders debated their response to the Vrilksa proposal, the star system's sensors blared to life. A massive energy surge rippled through space, emanating from the approaching unidentified vessel. The coalition's communication networks crackled and sputtered, plunging the research planetoid and asteroid base into intermittent silence. Donald's fingers flew over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We need a backup system now," he muttered, his mind racing through possibilities. His eyes lit up as an idea struck him. "The terraforming technology. We can use it to create energy relays." Within hours, a network of sleek, pulsing devices dotted the surfaces of the habitable planetoids. These modified terraforming units emitted low-frequency energy waves, establishing a more stable communication channel across the system. Captain Czar's voice, tinged with static but clear, came through the new relay system. "Unknown vessel approaching rapidly. Energy signature unlike anything we've encountered. All units on high alert." As the coalition braced for potential confrontation, a crisis unfolded in the heart of their research efforts. Lyra, the linchpin of their genetic experiments, collapsed during a routine procedure. Her body, pushed to its limits by constant adaptations, began to show signs of cellular breakdown. Dr. Ilara's voice was tight with concern as she called for emergency measures. "Her genetic structure is destabilizing. We need to halt all experiments immediately and focus on stabilizing her condition." Vera worked alongside Dr. Ilara, their hands moving in a blur as they administered a cocktail of stabilizing agents. "Her body is rejecting the latest modifications," Vera reported, her eyes fixed on the fluctuating readings. "We need to find a way to revert some of the changes without compromising the valuable data we've gathered." As the medical team fought to save Lyra, a commotion erupted in the PAC-led quarters. A group of volunteers who had undergone the refined genetic therapy were exhibiting startling new abilities. Their cognitive functions had skyrocketed, surpassing even their previously enhanced state. One of the super-intelligent PAC-leds, his eyes shining with newfound awareness, approached Zorn. "We've devised a method to increase the efficiency of the terraforming process by 327%, he stated, his words flowing with unprecedented eloquence. "Additionally, we believe we can optimize the genetic stabilizer to work across an even broader spectrum of species." Zorn listened intently, his own enhanced mind working overtime to process the implications of this development. The potential benefits were immense, but so were the risks. How would this rapid evolution affect the delicate balance within the coalition? Captain Czar, ever vigilant, recognized the need for a new security paradigm. He gathered his top officers, including the newly enhanced PAC-leds, in the command center. "We need a defense system as adaptive as our enemies are unpredictable," he growled, pacing the room. "Integrate our technologies, our strengths, create something they won't see coming." As the defense teams worked on implementing Czar's vision, the refugee crisis reached a boiling point. Ships of all shapes and sizes poured into the system, drawn by whispers of miraculous genetic cures. High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed with stress as she coordinated with Zorn to accelerate the terraforming of additional planetoids. "We need to buy time," Mira insisted, her voice strained. "Can we establish temporary habitats on the outer planetoids while we prepare more suitable environments?" Zorn nodded, his enhanced mind already calculating the logistics. "We can use modified atmospheric domes as short-term solutions. It won't be comfortable, but it will keep them alive and contained until we can offer something more permanent." Amidst the chaos, Donald and Dr. Lyra made a breakthrough that sent shockwaves through the research team. They had successfully synthesized a compound that combined Lyra's adaptive capabilities with a universal genetic stabilizer. The result was a treatment that showed promise in addressing a wide range of genetic disorders while minimizing the risk of uncontrolled mutations. As they prepared to announce their findings, the massive unidentified vessel entered the outer reaches of the star system. Its sheer size dwarfed even the progenitor's ship, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. Suddenly, the vessel began emitting complex energy pulses that interacted with the star system's gravitational fields in bizarre ways. Zorn's eyes widened as he studied the incoming data. These pulses, they're not random. It's a form of communication, similar to methods used by the creators of the terraforming device. They're trying to talk to us through gravity itself. The coalition now faced a pivotal moment. As they grappled with internal crises and external threats, the mysterious vessel loomed ever closer, its intentions unknown. Donald, his mind racing with possibilities, proposed a daring plan. We can use the terraforming technology, combined with our new genetic compound, to create a controlled environment for interaction with this entity, he explained, his voice filled with equal parts excitement and trepidation. It's risky, but it might be our best chance at peaceful first contact. As the coalition leaders weighed their options, the star system hummed with tension. The fate of multiple species hung in the balance, with decisions made in the coming hours poised to reshape the course of galactic history. As the coalition leaders debated their next move, Donald's voice cut through the tension. "We have an opportunity here," he said, his eyes alight with dedication. "We can use our terraforming technology and the new genetic compound to create a controlled environment for interaction with this entity." High Counselor Mira's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "Elaborate, Dr. Redman." Donald quickly outlined his plan for a massive, enclosed biodome on one of the habitable planetoids. It will serve as neutral ground, capable of accommodating various species and atmospheric conditions. Captain Czar nodded, his fur rippling. "A defensible location for first contact, I approve." As the coalition mobilized to implement Donald's plan, alarms blared from the medical bay. Lyra had collapsed during a routine procedure, her body rejecting the latest genetic modifications. Vera and Dr. Lyra worked feverishly to stabilize her condition. "Her genetic structure is destabilizing," Dr. Lyra reported, administering a cocktail of stabilizing agents. Hours passed in tense silence before Vera announced, "She's stabilizing, but something's changed." Lyra's skin shimmered, shifting through a kaleidoscope of colors and textures. Though no longer life-threatening, these unpredictable transformations presented new challenges and opportunities for their research. Meanwhile, in the PAC-led quarters, a group of volunteers who had undergone the refined genetic therapy exhibited startling new abilities. Their cognitive functions had skyrocketed, surpassing even their previously enhanced state. One of these super-intelligent PAC-leds approached Zorn, speaking with unprecedented eloquence. "We've devised methods to increase terraforming efficiency by 327% and optimize the genetic stabilizer for a broader spectrum of species." Zorn listened intently, his enhanced mind racing to process the implications. The potential benefits were immense, but so were the risks of such rapid evolution. As the biodome's construction progressed, Captain Czar gathered his top officers, including the newly enhanced PAC-leds, in the command center. "We need a defense system as adaptive as our enemies are unpredictable," he growled. "Integrate our technologies, our strengths, create something they won't see coming." The defense team set to work, their efforts bolstered by the PAC-lead's advanced cognitive abilities. New shield configurations and weapon systems began to take shape, drawing on the combined knowledge of multiple species. Amidst this flurry of activity, the massive unidentified vessel entered the outer reaches of the star system. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen as it emitted complex energy pulses that interacted bizarrely with the star system's gravitational fields. Zorn's eyes widened as he studied the incoming data. These pulses, They're not random. It's a form of communication, similar to methods used by the creators of the terraforming device. They're trying to talk to us through gravity itself. As Zorn worked to decipher this gravitational language, sensors detected a new development. The vessel released a swarm of smaller, probe-like objects that spread throughout the star system. These probes began to interact with various celestial bodies, including the Coalition's habitable planetoids and the pre-spaceflight civilization's homeworld. Captain Xar responded swiftly, deploying mixed squadrons of Coalition ships to monitor and potentially intercept the probes. He integrated the enhanced Pac-led individuals into the fleet's command structure, leveraging their advanced cognitive abilities to predict and counter the probe's movements. On the research planetoid, Donald and Dr. Lyra made a startling discovery while analyzing data from Lyra's latest genetic scans. "Look at these markers," Donald said, pointing to a series of complex patterns on the holographic display. "They suggest a previously unknown connection to the ancient civilization that created the terraforming technology." Dr. Lyra's eyes widened. "This could change everything. We need to reevaluate Lyra's role in all of this." As the implications of this discovery sank in, High Counselor Mira called for an emergency summit of all Coalition species, including representatives from the refugee populations. The newly constructed biodome served as the perfect venue, showcasing the Coalition's technological achievements and adaptability. During the summit, a group of evolved Pac-leds presented a radical proposal. Their spokesperson, eyes shining with intelligence, addressed the assembled leaders. "We suggest using the terraforming technology in conjunction with advanced genetic therapies to rapidly evolve volunteers from various species. This guided evolution program could prepare us for whatever challenges the unknown entity might present." The proposal sparked intense debate. Some viewed it as a necessary step for survival, while others warned of the potential dangers of such rapid, artificial evolution. As discussions raged on, the probes released by the mysterious vessel began to coalesce around the star system's sun. They formed a massive, interconnected network that appeared to be drawing energy directly from the star, causing noticeable fluctuations in its output. Donald, recognizing the threat to the entire star system, initiated an emergency protocol. He redirected energy from the terraforming device on the asteroid base, creating a protective field around the habitable planetoids and the pre-spaceflight civilization's homeworld. The action stabilized the affected planets, but put significant strain on the Coalition's resources. Alarms blared across the command center as power levels fluctuated dangerously. Zorn, still working tirelessly to decipher the gravitational communication, suddenly straightened. "I've got it," he announced, his voice tight with excitement and concern. "The entity is attempting to access the star system's historical records, stored within the ancient artifacts and the terraforming devices. They're seeking specific information about the star system's past and its original inhabitants." As this revelation sent shockwaves through the Coalition leadership, Lyra experienced another physiological change. Her body began to emit pulses of energy that resonated with both the terraforming technology and the probes surrounding the sun. Donald rushed to her side, instruments in hand. "These energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've seen before. It's as if she's become a living conduit between our technology and the unknown entity." The Coalition now faced a critical juncture. They had to decide whether to proceed with the guided evolution program, how to respond to the entity's quest for information, and how to utilize Lyra's newfound connection. As tensions mounted and resources strained under the pressure of multiple crises, the mysterious vessel continued its inexorable approach. The fate of multiple species and the future of the entire star system hung in the balance, with decisions made in the coming hours poised to reshape the course of galactic history. Captain Xar's voice cut through the chaos. "Whatever we decide, we need to act fast. That ship isn't slowing down, and neither are those probes. We're running out of time." Time. As if in response to Xar's urgent words, alarms blared across the command center. Donald and Dr. Lyra burst through the doors, their faces flushed with excitement and trepidation. "We've done it," Donald announced breathlessly. "We've synthesized a new compound that combines elements of Lyra's adaptive physiology with the universal genetic stabilizer. Dr. Lyra nodded, her eyes bright. Initial tests show promise in addressing the PEC-led infertility crisis, but the implications go far beyond that. This could benefit multiple species facing genetic challenges. Before the coalition leaders could fully process this news, a technician monitoring Lyra's vital signs called out an alarm. "Sir, you need to see this." On the main screen, Lyra's body pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Energy waves radiated from her, resonating with both the terraforming technology and the probes surrounding the sun. Donald's mind raced. This is unprecedented. It's as if she's become a living conduit between our technology and the unknown entity. Captain Xar's ears twitched as he considered the implications. Can we use this to our advantage? Possibly, Donald replied, his voice tight with concentration. If we can harness this connection, we might be able to establish communication with the approaching vessel. Within hours, a specialized chamber was constructed within the biodome. Lyra lay at its center, surrounded by a web of sensors and energy modulators. As she connected with the chamber's systems, her consciousness expanded, allowing her to perceive the intricate energy fields permeating the star system. Zorn and a team of enhanced PEC-leds worked feverishly to decode the complex energy patterns that danced across the chamber's monitors. Suddenly, Zorn's eyes widened. They're seeking information about the original inhabitants of this star system, particularly their genetic legacy. High Counselor Mira's tentacles writhed as she made a snap decision. Authorize the sharing of select genetic data from our research. Let's see if we can establish a peaceful dialogue. As this tentative communication unfolded, the refugee crisis reached a boiling point. More ships poured into the system, drawn by whispers of genetic miracles. Captain Xar coordinated with Zorn, repurposing additional planetoids as temporary housing using the terraforming technology. In the research facility, Dr. Alar and her team worked around the clock, cataloging and analyzing the wealth of new genetic data provided by the diverse refugee population. These common genetic markers across multiple species, she murmured, they're the key to refining our universal genetic stabilizer. Amidst the mounting pressure, a group of evolved PEC-leds approached the coalition leadership with a radical proposal. Their spokesperson, eyes gleaming with enhanced intelligence, addressed the assembled leaders. We suggest implementing a guided evolution program, the PEC-led explained. By combining our terraforming technology with advanced genetic therapies, we could rapidly evolve volunteers from various species. This could prepare us for future challenges and alleviate resource pressures. The proposal ignited fierce debate. Some saw it as a necessary step for survival, while others warned of the dangers of artificial evolution. High Counselor Mira called for a vote, her voice heavy with the weight of the decision. As discussions raged, the probe's activity around the sun intensified. Climate instabilities rocked the habitable planetoids, threatening the refugee populations. Donald and his team worked tirelessly, adjusting the terraforming technology to maintain environmental balance. In the communication chamber, Lyra's connection to the unknown entity strengthened. Her mind expanded, accessing vast stores of information about the star system's history and the advanced technology of its original inhabitants. Her body twisted and shifted, adapting to process the influx of data. Recognizing the potential value of this information, Donald initiated a risky procedure to download the data directly from Lyra's mind into the Coalition's computer systems. Vera hovered nearby, monitoring Lyra's vital signs with growing concern. As the data transfer progressed, Coalition scientists pored over the incoming information. Their eyes widened as they discovered plans for an even more advanced version of the terraforming technology, capable of manipulating matter and energy on a stellar scale. This could be the solution to our energy crisis, Donald breathed, studying the complex schematics. If we can implement this technology, we might be able to counteract the probe's effect on the sun. The Coalition now stood at a crossroads. The decision to implement the guided evolution program loomed large, as did the question of how to utilize the newly acquired advanced technology. And through it all, the mysterious vessel continued its approach, its intentions still unknown. As the command center hummed with activity, Donald's gaze met Lyra's across the room. In that moment, they both understood the gravity of their situation. Their unique abilities and connection to the ancient technology had placed them at the center of a crisis that would shape the future of not just their star system, but potentially the entire galaxy. The air crackled with tension as the coalition prepared to make decisions that would alter the course of history. The next few hours would determine the fate of multiple species and the future of their shared home among the stars. As the command center buzzed with frantic activity, Donald's eyes locked with Lyra's across the room. In that moment of shared understanding, a spark of inspiration ignited. Donald's mind raced, connecting disparate pieces of information: the advanced terraforming technology, Lyra's unique physiology, and the mysterious entity's quest for knowledge. "I think I have a solution," Donald announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But it's going to require some radical thinking." High Counselor Mira turned her attention to him, her tentacles quivering with anticipation. "We're open to any ideas at this point, Donald. What do you propose?" Donald took a deep breath and began outlining his plan. He explained how they could adapt the newly discovered advanced terraforming technology to create a device capable of manipulating energy and matter on a stellar scale. This stellar harmonizer, as he dubbed it, could potentially stabilize the sun's output and neutralize the effects of the mysterious probes. As Donald spoke, Dr. Lyra and the enhanced Pakleds quickly grasped the implications. They began running simulations on their datapads, their enhanced intellects processing the complex calculations at lightning speed. "It's ambitious," Dr. Lyra admitted, her eyes wide with excitement, "but our preliminary models suggest it could work." While the scientists debated the finer points of the stellar harmonizer, Lyra stepped forward, her body pulsing with an otherworldly glow. "I have a part to play in this too," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power. Lyra explained that she was willing to undergo one final transformation, using a combination of the universal genetic stabilizer and the proposed guided evolution program. This would allow her to become a living conduit between the coalition and the approaching entity. Captain Czar's ears twitched skeptically. "Are you sure about this, Lyra? The risks are enormous." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with drive. "It's the only way to establish clear communication with the entity. We need to understand their intentions if we're going to willpower this crisis." With the plan set in motion, the coalition sprang into action. Donald led a team of scientists and engineers in constructing the stellar harmonizer, working around the clock to bring the device online. The biodome hummed with activity as components were fabricated and assembled. Meanwhile, Dr. Lyra and her team prepared Lyra for her transformation. They carefully calibrated the genetic stabilizer and evolution program, monitoring her vital signs as her body began to change at the cellular level. As the hours ticked by, tension mounted throughout the star system. Refugee ships continued to arrive, their passengers watching anxiously as the probes surrounding the sun grew more active. The pre-spaceflight civilization on their homeworld remained blissfully unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding above them. Finally, after days of feverish work, the stellar harmonizer was ready. Donald stood before the massive device, its intricate array of energy modulators and quantum field generators pulsing with potential. He took a deep breath and nodded to Captain Czar. "Activate the harmonizer," Kazar ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. As the device powered up, waves of energy rippled through the star system. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. The sun's erratic output stabilized, its angry flares subsiding into a steady, life-giving glow. The probes surrounding it seemed to pause in their activity, as if confused by the sudden change. In the communication chamber, Lyra's transformed body began to emit complex patterns of energy. Zorn and his team of enhanced Pakleds worked furiously to decipher the signals, their augmented minds processing the data at incredible speeds. "We're getting something," Zorn announced, his voice tight with excitement. It's not just a message. It's an entire history." As the coalition leaders gathered around the displays, the true nature of the approaching entity began to reveal itself. The mysterious vessel wasn't a ship at all, but a collective consciousness, the transcended forms of the star system's original inhabitants, who had long ago merged with the cosmos itself. The collective consciousness, recognizing the coalition's efforts and the potential of their diverse genetic pool, initiated a peaceful first contact. Through Lyra, they began to share vast stores of knowledge and technology, offering solutions to the myriad crises facing the coalition. Donald watched in awe as holographic displays filled the chamber, showcasing advanced terraforming techniques, genetic therapies, and technologies beyond their wildest dreams. He felt a surge of hope as he realized the implications of this knowledge. "We can save them all," he murmured, his mind racing with possibilities. "The Packleds, the refugees, even the pre-spaceflight civilization. We have the means to help them all now." As the data continued to pour in, the coalition leaders began to formulate a plan for implementing these revolutionary changes. The Packled representatives wept with joy as they reviewed the genetic therapies that could finally end their infertility crisis. Refugee leaders pored over plans for new habitable worlds that could be created using the advanced terraforming technology. In the midst of this flurry of activity, Donald found himself drawn back to Lyra. Her body shimmered with energy, her form seeming to fluctuate between solid matter and pure light. As he approached, her eyes opened, filled with the wisdom of countless civilizations. "Donald," she said, her voice echoing with newfound power, "this is just the beginning. The cosmos has so much more to show us." As Donald took Lyra's hand, he marveled at the journey that had brought them to this point. What had begun as a desperate act of kidnapping had led to the salvation and flourishing of countless civilizations. Together, they stood on the brink of a new era, ready to guide the coalition into a future bright with promise and possibilities.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.